call this meeting to order. May we have a roll call? Public member present.
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 Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to move to the second item on our agenda, petition for reinstatement hearings. I will now turn the meeting over to our administrative law judge.
Good morning, everybody. This is Judge Samponia. And Mr. Rhodes, can you come up for your hearing, please?
Can I ask that people use the microphones because it's not...
Is it? Yeah, go ahead and have a seat. So good morning. We are on the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Edmund D. Rhodes, cosmetologist license number KK 409404, petitioner. This matter is heard before the quorum of the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. The OAH case number is 2023-031-002. The agency case number is BC 2019-19144. Today's date and time is Monday, April 17, 2023. It is 9:11 in the morning. And my name is Chantal Samponia. I am the administrative law judge present at today's meeting. And we are in Burbank, California. May I take appearances, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. Deputy Attorney General Michael Yee, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California, pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes, can you state your appearance, please?
My name is Edmund D. Rhodes.
And you're representing yourself today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move forward then, Mr. Yee.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to start by marking Exhibit 1 for identification, which consists of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology's petition for reinstatement case summary, the petition for reinstatement of revoked license signed by petitioner Edmund Rhodes on August 24, 2022, and supporting documents. Exhibit 1 also contains the board's default decision and order in case number BC 2019-19144, ordered on April 9, 2020, effective May 9, 2020, with the attached accusation. Exhibit 1 also contains the board's license certification for petitioner, petitioner's hearing confirmation form, the board's acknowledgement of receipt of the petition, and the notice of hearing. I request that Exhibit 1 be moved into evidence.
Marked as Exhibit 1, the jurisdictional documents as identified. Is there any objection to Exhibit 1 being entered for jurisdictional purposes only? Exhibit 1 is entered for jurisdictional purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am now ready to proceed with the people's case and summary of the evidence.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Board of Barbering and Cosmetology issued cosmetologist license number KK 409404 to petitioner on May 24, 2002. The board filed accusation number BC 2019-19144 against petitioner on November 5, 2019, alleging causes for discipline for incompetence and unprofessional conduct. The causes for discipline were based on petitioner's failure to comply with accepted standards for the practice of cosmetology for a color service and negligent performance of a color service, resulting in physical harm to the consumer. Petitioner was served with the accusation on December 13, 2019. The default decision and order in case number BC 2019-19144 was ordered on April 9, 2020. The default decision and order was based on petitioner's failure to file a notice of offense within 15 15 days of service of the accusation. The decision became effective on May 9, 2020. I am now prepared to proceed with questions from the petitioner, unless the petitioner wants to make an opening statement first.
Mr. Rhodes, would you like to present an opening statement?
Yes. I would just like to say that I'm here to petition for my license back, and at first I didn't understand what the default meant, but it was because I didn't ask for a hearing. But like I explained to the other rep right here, is that I didn't do that because I had a lien on my license from child support, which I was just cleared up. And that was the reason why I didn't fight for the petition to, erase the revoke or what happened. I'm a great stylist. I've been a stylist for over 20 years. I've been an instructor for 2 years, where I was the supervisor there at Lancaster Beauty School. I've mentored many stylists, barbers throughout my years. I'm a SIDE award winner, Beauty Expo, 2011, as the best stylist, best salon. And also in the little packet that I gave, there's something in the back. I just received a community award as well for my service in my community and what I do for retirement homes and things of that nature. I'm just asking for this to get my life back. I've rehab, I've done everything that I could possibly do in this time off. Cleared up everything I was supposed to, and learned some things. I went to some classes and everything, just to better myself. I've done it for a long time, just to better myself and just make sure that I'm on track going forward. I just assume that I can just continue forward. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Do you have questions, Mr. Yee?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Rhodes, good morning. You were served with accusation number BC 2019-19144 on or about December 13, 2019. Yes. You did not file a notice of defense within 15 days of the service of the accusation to request a hearing on the accusation. Yes?
So I'm not understanding, because I did send the paperwork back, like saying what my part of it was. So I didn't see or understand a part in there where it said file for a hearing. You understand what I'm saying?
I do, Mr. Rhodes, but you didn't file the notice of defense within 15 days of service of the accusation, correct? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you indicated that you didn't file the notice of defense because you had a lien on your license?
Yes.
What do you mean by I had a lien on my license?
Well, child support, when you're behind or when they have whatever, they'll block your license. You're just like in a driver's license, like they put a lien on it where you can't. It's not eligible. Like it was automatically suspended. You understand what I'm saying?
I think I do thank you for that explanation.
But I have to in full.
When was the lien cleared?
On the paperwork, that was 2021.
And the lien was placed on your license because you did not pay child support?
Well, it was a technical thing, but yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You indicated that you have rehabilitated yourself.
Yes, sir.
How have you rehabilitated yourself?
Well, I've took into color classes. I've been to some hair shows. I stay online and YouTube and things of that nature. Just paying attention to my craft, just getting better. Just watching things that maybe I didn't pay attention to at the time, maybe. But just being a good person, just doing it, and just being out there, just making sure that I'm on the right track and that I know what I'm doing going forward.
Thank you for that. And in any aspect that it is different, how have you bettered yourself?
I bettered myself in a lot of ways. One thing was clearing up that lien that has plagued my life for a little while, even though it's a technicality, should have been taken care of it. And, just by being a better person in my community. Unfortunately, my mom was in a rehab facility, so what I did with that was that I began to style, I would go there, watch her, give her, and do little things, but I ended up doing it for the facility itself, just being, selfless and got a couple other friends with me, just to help out in our community, to do those little things for the elderly and, for our community and for the kids going back to school. I also created an organization for kids going back to school for haircuts and hairstyles before school starts, in September. So that's another way I rehab myself, just by doing community and, stuff like that.
Thank you. When is the last time you worked as a cosmetologist?
It's been a while, because I sold in my sent in renewal fee, and they sent me a letter back saying that my renewal was invalid because of child support. So I stopped working. So that was maybe mid 2019 or no, it was about 20. I think it was about 20. I can't say exact, but it's been a while.
Mr. Rose, your cosmetologist license expired on or about May 31, 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
And it is alleged in the accusation that you performed a cut and color service on consumer AS on or about January 22, 2019? So did you perform cosmetology services on consumer AS after your license had expired?
I sent my renewal in, and I wasn't aware at the time when that happened that it wasn't valid. Because I was waiting for them to send me my license back. Sometimes it takes a while. It was late in me sending the payment in, but I was just waiting for it to come back. And that's
When did you realize that your license had expired?
probably a month or so after January. I'll have to say March, maybe. February, March.
2020?
2020.
2020?
No, what was that? 19, I'm sorry. 19.
So would it be fair to state that you worked with an expired license from on or about May 31, 2018 until March 2019?
I don't think the fifth on that. Sorry.
Have you worked since, other than cosmetology services that you may have performed between May 2018 and March 2019, have you worked in any other capacity?
Yeah, I went to bartending school, so I completed bartending school. And so I've just been doing that in the meantime until I can get back on track, without investing in this here.
Did you obtain any certificate or degree from bartending school?
Yes, I have a national bartending.
Are you a licensed bartender?
Yes.
When did you get your certificate or degree in that field? Okay.
I will have to be in 2020, 2022, last year, probably around about June.
And what did the bartending school require?
This requires schooling. You have to do eight courses, like 8 classes, which are 2 hours apiece. Then you have to take a test, which consists of speed test. How fast you can make drinks. But our school consisted of a lot of customer service. How you handle people. I'm a people person. I love people, so anything that I do has to do with people. And like I said, I'm a community person. I just love to deal with people. And I've always been a stand-up professional person in anything I've ever done.
Have you worked as a bartender?
I just do, I'm independent, so I do private parties, big events and stuff. I don't want to be in a bar setting like a restaurant.
You indicated that you teach or taught at Lancaster Beauty College.
Yes, sir.
Do you need a cosmetologist license to teach at Lancaster Beauty College?
Yes.
Have you taught at Lancaster Beauty College without a cosmetology license?
No.
Other than what you already stated, what cosmetology education or training have you completed since May 9, 2020?
Like I said, I've completed some classes online. One was a red pin class, which is a color line. there's a product line called Loran Products. It's a African American color line. I've taken classes with them, like they do individual classes through their products, and I've done some things with them. But it was mostly like hair replacement, like man weaving and different little things that are right now in labor, So I took those.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, why do you want your license back?
Because I've been blessed to do this. I love putting smiles on people's face. This is what I've done for half of my life, I'm just this is what I've done. I mean, I also have a successful clothing line, and I also do the bartending, but nothing gives me the satisfaction, that hair does. I love to, when a person gets out of your chair, that smile, that everything, that's everything.
Where would you work if your license is reinstated?
I worked in salons for over 20 years, so mainly I would like to get my own salon or suite. In my city, we were kind of down as far as African American representation for our salons in my city. So that would be my first target, is to try to, come together with some people, get me a little salon, and, rebuild that part, in my city. If I don't do an individual suite, to myself.
What assurances can you provide to the board that the alleged violations will not be repeated if your license is reinstated?
I went 17, 20 years without ever having an incident like that. I've never, ever, in my whole career, ever had an incident with any client like that. And I've done lots of color, I've done lots of service, and many clients, hundreds of people over that time span. And I've never, and I've learned from it. It's humbled me, it's made me do other things to, stabilize myself, like I said. And I'm just feel ready right now. And I'm, very confident that that won't ever happen. And I, learned some things about, the do's and don'ts.
So you know what you did wrong, and you know what to do to prevent that from happening again?
In a way, to be honest with you, just in what I've learned since that time about that type of service, that person, it probably should have been, in a way. So, I've learned, and I'm, very confident, and I understand, what went wrong. And, as one out of hundreds, that I'll satisfy over you.
If your license is reinstated, would you agree to any and all terms of probation imposed by the board?
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions for Petitioner, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rhodes, is there anything you want to add?
Not really. I mean, just that, I'm a hard worker, professional person, and a good person in my community. Even one of the letters that's in this file right here is from my city councilman. It says pastor on there, but he's also our city councilman. And, I have those type of people, backing me in this situation and moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I think we need to address the additional documents that came in. So, and Mr. Yee, did you get those?
The additional documents, Your Honor?
Did we hand a packet to Mr. Yee? Mr. Rhodes today had, I'm not sure, about 7 pages. Where did it go? Here it is, sorry.
I do not have those documents, Your
Oh,
Honor.
okay.
Thank you.
So we entered Exhibit 1, the jurisdictional packet. But Mr. Rhodes, do you have this with you?
I know it's fine, though.
Oh, okay. Well, we see, 1 second. We have 6 photographs, and then a document from Los Angeles County CSSD Antelope Valley, so child support. And can you tell us a little bit about these documents and what you want them to show?
Well, these documents mostly show just my work over the years, color services, the cuts that I've done, and one of them shows, that particular service that was in question, this one right here, that was in question, that, I performed correctly and 100% document was basically, just showing the rehab. This one right here was just showing that, I cleared up the lien and I cleared up everything to, be in a position to, have my license, restored and with no, things hanging over it. And, just moving forward, also, just showing the worth and things that I've done, over time in this period of time, you know, being given the work on my old high school was just like the greatest thing, and I was glad that they recognized me for my community service and for the things I've done over the years, for myself and for my community, and for, this business.
Do you have questions about these documents for Mr. Rhodes?
No, Your Honor. Can I request that the documents be marked as Petitioner's Exhibit A?
Yes, so marked. And so I just want to clarify, we have it's 6 photographs of hair. The 7th page is an award stating, is it Nogales? Sorry. Nogales High School. And then the last page is from child support. And that will be marked as Petitioner's A.
Your Honor, the only objection I would have is to the Los Angeles County Child Support Services Division document, but I would be willing to, the only objection I would have, Your Honor, is to administrative hearsay, Your Honor. Otherwise, no objection.
Okay, the last page of Petitioner's A will be entered pursuant to administrative hearsay to supplement any direct evidence that's been presented. Also, it looks like there's a minor's name on this, and I will redact that.
Thank you, Your Honor. No other objections to respondent's A. Petitioner's A.
Okay, one moment. Okay, I think now is the opportunity for the board to ask questions. And if you wouldn't mind for me, if you can state your name before you're asking the questions. Oh, sorry, one other thing. Included with Petitioner's Exhibit A is the customer's receipt. I don't think copies were made of this for everybody yet, but will be done so after the hearing. So it says United States Postal Service, it says Cosmo renewal, is that right? And what is this document? It's showing an amount of $75. And what does this indicate?
Well, like I was telling him on the, when he was talking about when my license was, I had to renew it in 2018 or 19, or what have you. I sent the stuff in, I think it was 19, but I never got the license. I don't know what happened to the $75. Because of the lien, it wasn't.
Thank you. Okay. So that will be added. And is there an administrative hearsay objection to this document as well?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Okay. And so that last page, copies will be made and added to everybody's packet, but that last page, the customer's receipt, will be administrative hearsay. Okay, questions from the board?
Yeah, hi, Jacob Rostovsky. My question is, I've yet to hear anything about how you feel about what happened to your client. And I'm curious as to, A, how you feel about the situation, and B, what impact might you think this incident had on the client?
I feel for all my clients personally, so I felt bad about how the situation played out. I really felt bad that she never talked to me about the situation, because to be honest with you, after I gave her back all her money from the situation, I never talked to this girl ever again. I never was aware that anything was wrong Like I said, I feel bad. I don't know what the long last, how she feels or what have you. I haven't today. I did try to reach out to her a couple times, but I was unsuccessful. So, like I said, I feel bad, and it's an humbling experience for me because I never experienced anything of that nature. So, but it's made me probably a better person and made me tap into things that I hadn't before. So, I would have to say, in a way, it's been a positive. Hopefully everything works out, in the end of the day, but it's really, helped me to grow.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
During the last 2 years, have you performed any cosmetology services in which you were compensated by the person?
No, no, sir.
I have a question. I heard you say that your plan is to get back and work. Are you going to continue? Are you going to seek being an instructor again?
Yes, because it's funny you say that. The Lancaster Beauty School has been running for over 40 years. Just changed owners, but the last owner, gave the new people my number, and they reached out to me, and I had to explain to them what's going on with me at this time. But I don't. I love that to give back, So it is definitely something that I plan on doing if I'm in the state.
And the follow-up to, I'm sorry, my name is Tanya. And the follow-up also to Jacob's question. As an industry member, 32 years, I know that sometimes we can know and have the confidence of what we're doing, and as we proceed with not, going in to hurt a client or damage a client or anything. How has this process affected you personally?
It's affected me a lot personally because I'm a professional and this is what I've done for so long. I can, go into financially how it's affected me, but that's personal things. But it's really been hard, because on top of that, like I said, losing parents, things of that nature, and the pandemic and all that type of stuff. On top of not being able to work, and I do have kids, so like all that different type of stuff. So it's been really, a challenge, but I don't, lay down on any challenge. I'm a people person, so I found something else that was similar in a way in the bartending. So, I try to pick myself back up that way, build my confidence back up in myself, that way. And, that's pretty much it, but it's,
If your license is reinstated, what are you going to do to make sure it doesn't expire again?
pay on time. I promise you, I will pay early. I will take care of all of that, all of those things that I kind of had issues with in the past. Like it's really, taught me a lot, and even with that too, I've made sure to my own self and to self, like we're on that. We got to stay on those things, and I will definitely, be on that on time, early, however it goes. 2 payments at a time, it doesn't matter. So I'll definitely stay on that. I promise you.
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, this is President Pam, Mr. Rhodes. Earlier in your testimony, you mentioned that you're now going to pay attention to things that you didn't before. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Well, when you've been there for so long, like you say, you kind of get comfortable after a while, and then sometimes you miss little things. So just reading instructions, sometimes just making sure that everything's in line, things of that nature is what I mean by that.
How would you conduct a consult differently to prevent this from happening in future clients?
Definitely a more thorough consultation in the beginning, making sure that me and the patient has a clear understanding of what they want, what could be the outcome, good or bad. Just getting a clearer understanding beforehand between the both of us, about the whole, situation.
And I didn't see any mention of this in the record, but is there any prior history of any citations or disciplines?
No.
For counsel?
No, there were.
Not that I received.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I believe that concludes this portion of the reinstatement
Thank you,
petition.
Your Honor. I have a very
Oh.
brief closing.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. petitioner has the burden of demonstrating rehabilitation and fitness for reinstatement by clear and convincing evidence to a reasonable certainty. If the petition is granted, the people request that the reinstatement be subject to completion of all licensing requirements, including payment of any fees and costs. Pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 125.3, the board cannot reinstate petitioner's license without full payment of the costs. The people further request that the license be immediately revoked upon reinstatement, the revocation stayed, and petitioner be placed on probation for a term deemed appropriate by the court with standard conditions 1 through 16 in the board's disciplinary guidelines and other optional conditions of probation that the court believes are necessary. Pursuant to the recommended language for applicants and reinstatements in the disciplinary guidelines, the people also recommend that petitioner be ordered to retake and successfully complete the licensing exam and remedial education courses relevant to the violations prior to the reinstatement. Thank you.
And just for a point of clarification, in reading the default decision and order, no costs were ordered. It's just because I think there might have been some confusion in that. Well, go ahead, Mr. Yee.
It was recommended, I think, in one of his, or whoever, recommended, but it was not, I was not given.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Yee.
Your Honor, the most updated and recent information that I have from the board shows an outstanding fine of $50.
Yeah.
There is no cost recovery. I do not know if that $50 fine has been paid.
Where do you see that?
In the petition for reinstatement case summary, Your Honor, A1.
I've seen that too, but I don't know where the $50 came from. I've never received anything that said I had to pay $50 for anything. I mean, I don't mind, but I never received anything that said $50 for anything.
I do not have the documentation showing the basis for that fine, Your Honor.
Okay.
But that is the information that I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any closing argument, Mr. Rhodes?
I would just like to thank you guys for your time, for letting me, present myself here. And like I said, I lost a lot over this time, but I still, stood strong and tried to do the things to rehab myself and get myself back on track the best way I knew how. I'm a great stylist. I'm a great person. I'm a professional. I always have been and always will be going forward. I'm sorry for the situation that happened. I'm very humbled by the situation that happened. I learned from that situation when moving forward. And, I just keep God first and just try to just work as best as I can, And, like I said, I apologize again for the situation. I tried to apologize to the person, but was unsuccessful for the situation. And, I don't mind the probation or whatever be the case, but, certain things I'm just not in a position to do because I don't have much. I haven't been working for the last few years at my regular craft, and so it would be hard for me to do anything like some crazy fines or some, just, all I want to do is just get my life back. I've done the necessary things to do that, and this is just one of the final things that I need to complete, to going forward, Been through a lot through pandemics and all this stuff. I'm pretty sure everybody has, and I just want to move forward, and I just want to get my life back on track, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
No rebuttal, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now this is concluded. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. So in terms of this original, because if he's leaving now, I don't know if we need to get copies of this. I think we need copies of this. But the rest is already copied. So just okay. Okay, Mr. Rhodes, you can go step back there, and she'll bring your original receipt. Do you need anything else? You have your originals.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Ms. Baranian, you can come up. Okay, we'll go back on the record. Good morning. We are on the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Kira Elizabeth Baranian, cosmetologist license number KK 425835, petitioner. This matter is heard before the quorum of the State Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. The OAH case number is 2023-030-997. The agency case number is 2020-2114. Today's date and time is Monday, April 17, 2023. It is 9:53 in the morning. And my name is Chantal Samponia. I'm the administrative law judge on this matter. And we are in Burbank, California. May I take appearances, please? Mr. Yee?
Good morning, Your Honor. Deputy Attorney General Michael Yee, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California, pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. And Ms. Baranian?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kira Baranian, and I'm representing myself.
Thank you. And Mr. Yee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to start by marking Exhibit 1 for identification, which consists of the board's petition for reinstatement case summary, the petition for reinstatement of revoked license signed by petitioner, received by the board on March 8, 2023, and supporting documents submitted by petitioner. Exhibit 1 also contains the board's decision and order in case number BC 2020-21114 with an order date of April 26, 2021, and an effective date of May 26, 2021, and the proposed decision and accusation in case number BC 2020-21114. Exhibit 1 also contains the board's license certification for petitioner, petitioner's hearing confirmation form, the board's acknowledgement of receipt of the petition, and the notice of hearing. I request that Exhibit 1 be moved into evidence.
Marked as Exhibit 1, the petition packet, reinstatement packet as identified. Is there any objection to Exhibit 1 being entered?
No.
Exhibit 1 is entered.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am now ready to proceed with the people's case and summary of the evidence.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Board of Barbering and Cosmetology issued cosmetologist license number KK 425835 to petitioner on June 3, 2003. The board filed accusation number BC 2020-21114 against petitioner on January 13, 2021, alleging 6 causes for discipline for unprofessional conduct, violation of an interim suspension order, and operating without a valid license. The causes for discipline were based on petitioner's failure to abide by orders not to operate during the COVID pandemic and to comply with COVID prevention protocols and other related state orders and board rules. The hearing on the accusation was held March 3 through 5, 2021. Petitioner was represented by counsel. In the proposed decision issued on April 5, 2021, the administrative law judge determined that cause existed to impose discipline against petitioner's cosmetologist and establishment licenses by her repeated disregard of the health and safety of patrons by operating during the pandemic in defiance of public health orders not to operate indoors, and not to operate without utilizing COVID protocols such as masks and social distancing. The ALJ also determined that petitioner violated the interim suspension order issued on December 29, 2020, and operated while her licenses were suspended. The decision and order in case number BC 2020-21114 has an order date of April 26, 2021, and became effective on May 26, 2021. I am now prepared to proceed with questions for petitioner, unless petitioner wishes to make an opening statement first.
Ms. Baranian, would you like to provide an opening statement?
I would.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I would like to start with the fact that I do believe my case is very unique. I don't know if there ever has been in the past a situation where a pandemic would put some stress on licensees that are under the Department of Consumer Affairs, particularly this is the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. I would like to start with research that I've done myself. I spoke to Audrey Hopkins, who is a legislative analyst for the Department of Consumer Affairs. She let me know that under 31 boards that are held under the Department of Consumer Affairs, that there was only 4 personal licenses and 4 establishment licenses that were revoked due to COVID guidelines and mandates. I personally am one of those, as far as a personal license and an establishment license, and I also personally know the other 3 people. Again, I'd like to say that was 31 different boards, and the only licenses that were revoked were under the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, and that was 4 personal licenses and 4 establishment licenses. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of licenses, or licensees, I should say, where there was no act or any disciplinary actions taken other than the board. I would also like to make it known that those 4 people, and I'll speak for myself, were very loud, and I truly believe we were targeted. There have been hundreds of thousands of cosmetologists in the state that have been working just like I was. There was tens of thousands of salons and or establishments that kept their doors open just like I did. I didn't qualify for PPP loans because I don't have employees. So none of that was actually at my hands, nor was I able to have any sort of help from any of those loans. I have 26 other stylists in my salon, 26 families that needed to be fed, 26 families that depended on livelihood, that I held the key to my door, and I felt it was the necessary need to open. Why did I get loud is probably one of your guys' biggest questions. I got loud because I felt as though it was probably the best way to push other businesses to realize that we all have rights. We all have right to be able to be employed. We have the right to work. We have the right to make an income. Livelihoods are very important. When it came to COVID, I think it was probably the #1 thing that we all really cared about, and that was livelihood. It was essential versus non-essential. I would like to ask the board to please in the future advocate for our industry. We are so sanitary. In fact, it is the #1 thing that comes when we take our board tests. Currently, there's no physical test that has to be taken any longer. It is just a written test, and most of the questions are about sanitation. Advocating for us would be probably the best way instead of going after us. I believe that you all would love to be able to see our industry thrive and our industry to be happy and healthy, and making sure that you guys are also enhanced with the fact that our livelihoods as licensees is very important. I have amazing support from senators, assemblymen, my local sheriff, TA, my city chamber, and my county. And I know that you guys have probably seen a few letters in the packet of certain people that have actually written in to support me. Working outdoors is a violation of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology's regulations, but you guys said it was okay to do because someone told you that's what we should do. So it was okay for you guys to ask us to work outside, violating what already has been stated in the regulations of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. But it wasn't okay for me to work inside where it was actually sanitary. COVID guidelines and mandates were not adopted by the board. They still to this day have not been adopted by the board. I truly believe that the board looked for a violation in the regulation that fit my unique case. In December of 2020, an email was sent out from the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, and in the third paragraph, it states that the board encourages licensees and establishments to follow guidelines for COVID. And again, I will say it encourages. I was 15 years old when I started in this industry. It's the only industry I've ever worked in. I started by sweeping hair and folding towels in a local little salon by my house. I moved on to go to beauty school, graduating and receiving my license in early 2003. Since that day, I've had 0 violations. I am diagnosed with OCD. Which any of you guys know what that is. It's somebody that's incredibly meticulous.
Ms. Branian, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for one moment. So this part was opening statement and not the testimony that you might want to be providing, and you're not under oath right now. So I'm not sure if you want to provide this during the presentation of your evidence versus the opening statement, or if you want me to place you under oath and you can swear back to what you stated and go forward with your statement.
Okay, my apologies.
No, it's okay. It's totally fine.
Okay. I just think even an opening statement would be to kind of state my case, and it's what I'm doing.
Yes, no, you're doing a great job with the opening statement, but you would need to present it again under oath for your testimony. So it's not coming in as evidence right now, it's coming in as an opening statement.
Okay, so when I ask questions, I can repeat what I've already said.
Yes.
Okay, can I finish this?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yes, just wanted to clarify, it's no problem.
I will go back to that. I'm diagnosed with OCD, so I'm incredibly meticulous. I've had 3 board visits since the reduction of my license with 0 violations. My husband and I used every single penny that we had to open Ladder Studio. I didn't get a loan. I tried my best to be able to financially afford what we were doing. I was only a year and a half old when COVID hit. I strongly stand behind the stance that I took. I am proud of the fact that I did everything I could, not only to not lose my livelihood, my income, my own business, but also for 26 other people. I fought very hard to have Ladder Studio, and today I'm proud that I will continue to fight as hard as I possibly can to keep Ladder Studio's doors open. I believe this industry is essential, and I hope down the road that if this becomes another problem, issue, or arises, that you also will consider us essential and fight for us. I'm asking today for you guys to understand my unique case, for you guys to believe in all the evidence that I have shown and will show, and reinstate my license. I'm a very deserving person. I'm very passionate about this industry. I'm very passionate about the lives that I touch. I'm very passionate about the other lives that work underneath my roof. I'm incredibly passionate in general about cosmetology. If there's any industry that can touch lives, it's this industry. And I want to continue to touch the lives of my community. I need my license.
Okay, thank you. Do you have questions for petitioner?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in then. Please raise your right hand. Ms. Branian?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were-
That's okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as required by law under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your full name slowly for the record.
My name is Kira Elizabeth Meridian, KIRAELIZABETBORANIAN.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed, Mr. Yee.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Brady.
Good morning.
You attach your letter dated June 25, 2022 in support of your petition to show what you have done to rehabilitate yourself pursuant to the criteria in California Code of Regulations, Section 971.
Correct.
And that is the first document after your petition, correct?
Correct.
Did you understand rehabilitation to mean, in part, that you would not repeat the same violations that resulted in the revocation of your licenses?
My case is very unique, and I will continue to say that. I don't believe that there's a way to rehabilitate yourself from a guideline that's requested during what they call pandemic. Or pandemic.
Do you understand that the purpose of this hearing is not to relitigate or re-argue the issues that were heard during the hearing on your accusation, but to present facts and arguments demonstrating that your license should be reinstated?
I do understand that, but I will say that I don't believe there is a way to rehabilitate myself if right now I don't need to be wearing a mask, social distancing, or opening and closing, or working outside.
Let's look at your letter, which is bait stamped A5 through A7 case center, and you may not have bait stamping, but that's how it came out in the case center.
Okay.
So I'll try my best to describe what I'm looking at and what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Can you give the number again?
Your Honor, in case center, the documents were bait stamped.
Yeah.
Petitioner's copy does not appear to have the base numbering.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if the members of your copy have the base numbering as well. So I'll do my best to describe the document so that we're all looking at the same document.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Branian, you wrote this letter dated June 25, 2022,
Correct.
and this is the only rehabilitation statement prepared by you in support of your petition?
Correct. I didn't send anything else other than another letter with my most recent filing, which was on the reinstatement filing was on, sorry about that, February 22nd, 2023. I sent this letter in, not knowing that I need to fill out a reinstatement application. I was kind of more in hopes that there was something they could do without coming to a hearing like this. That is where this letter came from.
Understood. Did you submit or do you have another rehabilitation letter?
I personally do not.
Now, directing your attention to the second paragraph of the first page. You wrote this letter to contest the decision made on April 26, 2021 regarding case number BC 2020-21114.
Correct.
So the purpose of this letter was to contest the decision, not to demonstrate rehabilitation?
Yes, in my case, yes.
I apologize.
That's okay, that's okay.
Please continue.
Again, I wrote this letter to Jennifer Popala because I didn't understand the reinstatement. This was more, again, like I said, I believe my case is very unique. This was more of a letter to her contesting, obviously, the agreement or the outcome of my case, and to see where I could go with that. And then that's when I was then told by Carrie Harris and Cassandra, and I don't remember her last name, that I could move forward with a reinstatement, and that was the only avenue I could go down to get my license back. And that's why I filed for a reinstatement.
Understood, thank you. And Procalla is spelled Procalla.
It's actually spelled Porocalla. I just spelled that, I apologize.
And who is she?
She was actually the main contact that I had during COVID with everything that had been going on with my case.
And what was,
She works for the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology.
what is or was her position?
You know what, I apologize, but I cannot say exactly because I get my phone, I can pull it out from her emails, but I can't say offhand right now. I believe believe she worked in the enforcement department.
You understand that this is the hearing on your reinstatement. So if the purpose of this letter is not to demonstrate your rehabilitation, you now have this opportunity to tell the board all the grounds why you believe your license should be reinstated. Do you understand?
I do understand.
Thank you. Did you appeal the decision revoking your license?
I did not.
Why not?
I didn't feel like I had a fair chance in administration court, unfortunately. The judge is allowed to rule how they want, and the board is allowed to either agree or disagree. And unfortunately, I don't have the funds to go to a state level. I will say that it is the plan for myself if that's where we need to go, because I now have incredibly amazing representation from my local senator.
Do you understand that an appeal of the decision could have been made to the Superior Court?
I did not know that. I was told personally by Carrie Harris that this was the only way that this was the only path that I could go down for reinstatement of my license. I had personal emails of that, that they don't just flip a switch and end up sending back your license, that if I wanted my license reinstated, I had to file for the reinstatement and come here today. That is what I was personally told.
But you knew that you could appeal the decision to the Superior Court.
I did not know that.
In the first paragraph under argument, you wrote that I never had any violations to date, nor did Lather Studio.
My personal license, correct, until COVID violations.
Is it still your contention that you didn't commit any of the violations found by the administrative law judge in the proposed decision that resulted in the revocation of your license?
I do. There is zero proof the board has shown that COVID was, that there was any people that either caught or came out of Lather Studio and were diagnosed with COVID.
Do you believe that a patron had to get COVID in order for you to violate the board's rules and regulations?
No, I don't believe that, but I do also believe that I was not forcing anybody through my door. I was simply open for business. The public had their choice to come and visit Lather Studio or not. I did not discriminate on people that chose to wear masks or not. Again, like I said, nobody was tied up and brought into Lather Studio, and everyone was very well aware of the fact that there was COVID-19.
In the next paragraph, you are making the same argument that you made during the accusation hearing, that the COVID precautions had less than 2% effectiveness in controlling COVID?
Yeah, in fact, this letter was written in June of 2022, and the status of that has actually changed to even lower.
Directing your attention to the last paragraph on the first page of your letter.
Okay.
You wrote that instead of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology investigating, harassing, setting fear in licensees, sending letters, suing, and fining those that hold licenses, I strongly believe that the board should have been advocating for us. You see that paragraph?
I do.
Do you believe that the board's inspection of Lather Studio on November 10, 2021 was harassing?
That was after my license was revoked. November of 2021 was after my license was revoked. And no, I do not believe that was harassing, but during COVID, yes, I do.
Can you please explain how the board harassed licensees?
I really wish I would have submitted the video of the inspector that came into my to my salon. In fact, she came in multiple times. I personally feel harassed by a lot of this. I feel targeted, very targeted by this. I guess my stance would be that in the beginning when I spoke to Jennifer McCall on the phone, she was very nice, we had a great conversation, and I told her how I felt about what was happening, and I told her exactly the avenue I was taking and where I was going with it. She was incredibly kind, and she said to me that the board had zero plans of finding or revoking licenses due to this, that we're calling simply just to educate and encourage our salon owners and or individual licensees. Unfortunately, that is not what happened, and from that point until my license was revoked, yes, I do feel I was harassed. But in November, the one that you're speaking about, that was after my license was revoked, and that visit was a great visit. In fact, there were 0 violations.
Can you identify any other licensees that were harassed by the board?
Yes, I can.
Please proceed.
I can use their names.
I believe that you can, yes.
You may.
Okay. Primo's Barbershop, Vacaville. His name is Juan Matis. And then there was also Uppercuts. And I believe that is up north as well, maybe Sacramento area. And I apologize, but I do not know the 2 owners' names at first hand. But we all do know each other and speak.
Can you spell the last name Vegas?
Can I get my phone so I can tell you, or is that a problem?
Well, why don't you try your best right now?
I honestly, I don't think I can spell it. It's Dematis, but there might be an R in there as well. I apologize. Do I mention him?
It's on the second page.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. I appreciate it. Here we go. Joshua Juan Desamaris. It's Desmarais.
Are you aware of any other licensees that were harassed by the board?
I am, but I apologize that I don't know their names. But they do own Uppercuts Barbershop.
How many licensees do you believe were harassed by the board?
Per the Department of Consumer Affairs, Aubrey Hopkins legislative analysis, there was 4 licensees and 4 establishment licenses revoked. Do I know personally other salons? I'm sure they're there. These are just the ones, unfortunately, that the board decided to take to court.
And to the extent
And
that,
the only ones that were taken to court.
to the extent that this question elicits a different response, how did the board set fear in licenses?
There was multiple letters that were sent out by the board and emails, making it very, very blatantly, a very blatant statement as to you shouldn't be open right now, as to these are the dates, as to this is what the state health department has said, as to these are the mandates. I truly believe that that is putting fear in the livelihoods of anybody licensed under the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. We were all in such a horrible position during COVID-19, all of us. But I won't let somebody tell me that my livelihood is essential.
Do you believe that the board should have advocated for licensees to continue operating without any COVID precautions instead of ensuring the public's health and safety?
I strongly believe that the board should have been advocating for us, regardless of the second part of that, as far as what you guys would decide, whether or not there would be regulations adopted by the board in order to enforce masking and enforce social distancing and enforce the opening and closing. That would be up to the board.
Do you understand that your established violations were not based on findings such as soil tools or properly labeled containers, but your repeated disregard of public health orders and violation of your suspension order?
I partially agree with that.
You operated out of studio while your license was suspended pursuant to the interim suspension order, correct?
Correct.
Directing your attention to the fourth paragraph on page 2 of your letter. The last sentence, second to the last sentence, states that it's felt by both parties that this is due to both parties speaking out against the tyranny that took place. What was the tyranny committed by the board?
All of us individually have rights. We should have never been forced to wear masks. We should have never been forced to social distance. We should have been able to go about our daily lives and make the choices for us at our own personal health. I also have the right to work. I have the right to speak. And I have the right to be able to make certain decisions for myself.
Directing your attention to the fifth paragraph. How did the board overstep their jurisdiction?
The board never adopted any COVID guideline mandates, guidelines. There was violations and regulations that were put on me that I believe fitted the narrative of what COVID was. So I did argue the fact that the board didn't have the right to suspend or take my license away because of COVID guidelines or mandates not being followed.
Do you still believe that the board does not have jurisdiction to investigate and take disciplinary action against its licensees?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Do you still believe that the board does not have jurisdiction to investigate and take disciplinary action against its licensees?
I think they do have the right to do that. Does that mean they have the right in certain situations with, let's say, certain so-called violations to revoke licenses? That's where I would disagree a little bit. But yes, absolutely, I do believe they have the right to investigate any and all establishments and licensees.
Under what circumstances does the board not have jurisdiction to take disciplinary action against its licensees?
I believe in this case with COVID-19 that they overstepped their boundaries in the sense of revoking my license strictly because of COVID guidelines. I didn't violate any board regulations. Again, like I said, I believe you guys found, or in this case, the board found something that fit with this unique case. But there was no violation of wearing a mask, social distancing, opening, closing, working outside, working inside, anything of that nature.
Please look at the last paragraph in your letter on page 3. Is it still your position that the board has and had no authority to enforce COVID-19 mandates because they have not been adopted by the board as regulations?
Absolutely, I believe it should have been the state public health department.
Similar to the facts of case number BC 2020-21114, if there is another pandemic and the state or county issues orders not to operate or operate with precautions, will you comply with the orders if your license is reinstated?
I think let's hope that doesn't happen, and I would hope if it does, that you guys actually would advocate for us in our industry. But if they came about it And it would keep me from being in this situation, yes.
Yes, you would comply, or
I'm answering yes to your question, yeah.
so you will comply if there is another pandemic and similar orders are issued.
Knowing now what I know, because the board has taken this where they have, I wouldn't want to go through it again. Doesn't mean I agree about it. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I also would hope the board would adopt those regulations and put them in as part of your guys' regulations. I truly believe it would have been easier to enforce.
Regardless of whether the orders are adopted or made regulations, if your license is reinstated, will you comply with the orders?
Well, it's bad if it happens.
So you can't offer any insurances or guarantees at this time.
My hope is that it just doesn't ever happen again. But I did answer yes to your question.
Sitting here today, would you change anything that you did or didn't do which resulted in revocation of your license?
No.
When is the last time you worked as a cosmetologist?
I currently just manage Lover Studio.
When is the last time that you engaged in the practice of cosmetology?
I am only at the salon to manage.
When is the last time that you performed cosmetology services?
I'm at Lover Studio to manage it.
I understand your response.
Ms. Baranian, your answers are non-responsive. Mr. Yee has not stated anything, but I am interjecting now. You need to answer the questions. It is a direct question, and you need to provide an answer. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Your answer that I'm there to manage is non-responsive. Go ahead, Mr. Yee.
Thank you, Your Honor. When is the last time that you performed cosmetology services?
I can't tell you a date, but it's been well over a year and a half. It's been a complete hardship.
Have you performed cosmetology services personally since June 30, 2021?
Meaning me doing them personally, that's what you mean, right?
Yes.
No. I wish I could. I really wish I could.
What work have you done since June 30, 2021 in any capacity?
I'm at the salon 4 days a week, and I'm there to manage cancer films and keep things running.
By the salon, you are referring to Louder Studio,
Correct.
currently located at 511 North Main Street, Suite 106 in Corona, California.
Yes.
Have you completed any cosmetology education or training since you last worked as a cosmetologist?
I'm constantly educating myself on with videos and stuff, but we do have in-salon education as well. And I believe in the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been, we've had 7 classes.
What type of classes?
Color cutting, business, product knowledge.
Why do you want your license back?
I strongly feel like my license was taken and it never should have been. I feel like it's time to move forward. I feel like it's time to move on. I think in the midst of 2020, 2021, and 2022, maybe a little part of 2022, no one knew really what to do. I think it's not about right or wrong. It's not about essential, well, it was a lot about essential and non-essential. I don't feel like it is now. I want to be able to go back to what I've done my whole life. I was 15 years old when I started in this industry. This is all I know. And I love what I do. I have a huge passion for it. It's why I opened a salon, because I love the business side of it just as much as the physically doing hair. I love providing a very happy, upbeat, busy environment for 26 stylists. It saddens me that out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of licensees under the DCA, that this happened to just 4 of us. I think that speaks high volumes and says a lot. I'm ready to move forward, and I hope you guys are too. I'm sure a lot of you disagreed or shook your heads over things I said today, and I totally understand and respect it. But I also still firmly believe in where I believe a lot of this went kind of haywire, and I believe it should have never happened. I truly do. I truly believe that I should have never been taken to where I've been taken. And I just want to continue in the career that I have so much passion for.
Can you provide any assurances to the board that the alleged violations will not be repeated if your license is reinstated?
Do you want me to not just say yes? Do you want me to express a little bit more than that, correct? Can you repeat the first part of that question a little bit?
Yes. Let me ask you that.
Okay, no problem.
What assurances can you provide to the board that the alleged violations in the accusation will not be repeated if your license is reinstated?
Okay. So I know the violation for me was that I put the public's health at risk. And I would like to just make sure you guys all know that I care genuinely about the sanitation of my salon. I care genuinely about the cleanliness and the environment that every single client walks into. I will continue to employ my cleaning crew. I will continue to employ my daily assistant that walks around sanitizing and cleaning every single day. When and if something arises with another pandemic, which I really pray doesn't, I will figure out exactly what needs to be done and when it needs to be done if that day comes.
If your license is reinstated, will you agree to any and all terms of probation imposed?
Yes, although I hope there would be, but yes, I would. I will say though, I know that there is a cost recovery outstanding balance of $11,542.50, and I don't believe that that is. I don't believe that's my responsibility.
Do you understand that your license can't be reinstated unless you pay the full cost owed to the board?
I'm not under that understanding, but I do believe there might be other avenues that can be taken.
What do you mean by other avenues?
Well, I would hope that the board could reconsider the cost of recovery. It's not a fine. They're asking me to pay back the attorney's fees for the attorney they hired to take me to court.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, well, it is 10:30, so do you need a break? No? Oh, okay. Okay, we may all need a break. Okay, so we'll take a 15-minute break then. I'm sorry.
5 minutes.
Oh, 5? Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break, but Ms. Baraney, when we come back, then you can add more if you want to testify more. So we're just taking.
Before questioning from the board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Okay, so we'll return. So Ms. Baranian, do you have any additional testimony you want to provide?
To get it on the record, because my opening statement was not on record, correct?
It was on record, but it wasn't sworn, so it wasn't taken as evidence. It was taken as an opening statement. So if you want to provide any additional testimony to be considered as the evidence in your hearing, you may do so now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Tanya Fairley, industry member, vice president. Listening to you and reading your statement, I have a few questions because I'm a little confused. Do you understand what the board's main priority is?
As in their main priority for.
What does the
licensees?
what does the board stand for? What is our main priority?
The Board of Barbering, Cosmetology, Sanitation. My guess would be sanitation.
Our main priority is to protect the public. Is to make sure that safety and sanitation is being followed in our establishments to protect the public. You had stated several times that you wanted the board to advocate for licensees. Okay. And advocating for licensees.
Okay, one moment. It's question answer, and we have a court reporter who's transcribing everything. So it's a question, a pause, and then an answer, but it is not crosstalk.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to add to that.
Go ahead.
You stated that, the last question you said.
I was.
I'm aware of the fact that you guys, protect the public. Can you finish the last question?
Right, so that the board's priority is the public. Yes. You stated that you wish that the board would advocate for licensees. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit, please?
Yes. I'm speaking just in this case, as far as COVID-19 and the lockdowns, the masking, the social distancing, the essential and non-essential. That's what I'm speaking of. So when I answer you or ask you guys to advocate, I'm speaking in the future something like this happens again. Advocating for our industry to, I guess, be essential because of how sanitary we are.
Do you understand that the directive for the COVID-19 mandates came in conjunction from both the governor and I'll say the governor. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand that the board is appointed by the governor?
Yes.
So do you understand that if the governor gives an order or a mandate, that we as licensees have to follow the mandate or the orders given by the governor?
Yes, I'm sure that is what you guys have to do, but again, it was a guideline.
You stated that out of 31 boards, 4 were revoked under the DCA. That means that, you stated that out of the 31 boards, that as far as licensee, 4 under the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, there was only 4 licenses revoked. That means that there was over 1,000 salons that followed the order or did not have cause to have the license revoked.
I disagree with that. I personally know hundreds of salons that were not following mandates and guidelines. The difference was they were quiet about it. I wasn't.
So I'll say this again. Does that mean that there was hundreds of salons, using your words, that followed the guidelines or did not get inspected during the COVID-19 protocols that were in place and mandated by the government, which made a difference in you being revoked versus them?
Oh, I'm absolutely sure that there was salons that were following all the guidelines, yes.
As a licensee, we are bound by guidelines rules and regulations. And I understand your passion for the industry. What I want to understand is the passion for not following the guidelines that were mandated by all of us. We were all affected.
Okay, sorry, I thought we were going to continue on. I believe all of you guys got paychecks during this time. Maybe you had some times when you didn't. You guys probably qualified for unemployment when we didn't. I do understand that there was some establishments and licensees that were following state guidelines, but there were a lot of salons that weren't. So why is there only 4 of us? We were all loud. That's why there's 4 of us.
Let me clarify something that you just said. As I stated when I opened up, I am an industry member. I'm a salon owner, have been a salon owner for quite a while. And I'm also in a county that has their own health department. When the state governor said to close and the health department said to close, we followed those instructions. As passionate as I am about the industry, I'm still trying to understand that you understand that the board is here for safety and sanitation, and we were given a mandate to close. The passion behind you not closing is concerning. And Attorney Yu asked the question is if you were to get your license back, would you follow the mandates given? It's still a mandate. What would be different than back when COVID-19?
There actually isn't any more mandates or guidelines. The state of emergency has been signed and released. There is no more state of emergency. Neither is there a national state of emergency. That was just signed by President Biden last week. So no, there is no more mandates and there is no more guidelines. All of the state of emergencies have been signed and released. There is no more state of emergency.
I said in the event that there is.
Oh, 'cause you
What is
said
the
there was a
difference?
mandate. I'm sorry.
In the event that there is, what would be the difference between then and now if something was to happen that you would follow the mandates or guidelines given?
In this unique case with me, I am where I am now and I can't go back. But in the future, if we're revisited with something like that, which I pray we don't, then that would be something I definitely have to consider in order to keep working and keep my salon open.
You were asked if you were still working, and you stated that you were managing Lavish Salon. As a manager, do you hold a cosmetology license?
No.
So if the inspector was to come in and you stated your position as a manager and you do not have a license, do you understand that am I correct that there's supposed to be a manager? If you're a manager, you're supposed to have your license?
Every time they come in, there's a licensee in charge.
There's a licensee in charge, okay.
Yeah.
And do you still have a full salon working as of now?
Yes, I do.
And has your establishment license been revoked?
It was and it has been reinstated since.
No.
And that happened maybe 3 weeks after court last year.
When your license was reinstated as the establishment, were you still operating while you were revoked?
No, I got my establishment license very quick afterwards. So there was no establishment license, and then we got our establishment license. It's my husband, and then we were able to open and continue working. Or I should say myself.
I have no further questions.
Any other questions from other board members?
Yeah, only because you brought it up. Are you aware?
Can you just state your name?
Oh, sorry,
for the...
Jacob Rostovsky. Are you aware that your 2 letters of support, so one from Sheriff Bianco and the other from, I think, Mike Heston, are both individuals that are currently under investigation for ethical standards of practice?
Currently under investigation, or they have been proven guilty?
They are currently under investigation.
Correct, but have they been proven guilty of so? You're innocent until proven guilty,
Correct. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Ms. Baranian, you need to answer the question.
Are you aware? That was my question.
That was the question. And then you need to provide an answer. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, this is a question from President Grant. Ms. Vereen, do you recall how many times you interacted with the board about COVID mandates before the accusation was filed in January 2021?
Multiple times, whether it be via email, whether it had been phone call, whether it just been generic letters that you guys were sending out to, to salons or barbershops or nail salons or anything of that sort. Multiple times. And never once was I under the impression that this is where this would go.
So would it be correct to say that the board warned you or at least informed you about the need to follow many local and state COVID mandates?
My exact conversation with Jennifer was that I'm only calling to educate you. You know what the mandates are, what the guidelines are. We're just calling our owners, establishments, and just encouraging them to take consideration.
You said there were other conversations or other interactions that occurred?
Yes, well, because I had visits from the Barbering Cosmetology. So the in-house visits from inspectors, would that be considered like conversations and or contact?
Yes.
Okay.
And what did the inspectors tell you during those initial contacts?
The first inspector that came, the salon was actually closed, so we weren't there. And then the time after they came was after I had spoke with Jennifer McCullough twice on the phone, and then had received a couple letters. And in your guys' letters, it all says encourages. It doesn't say we are forcing you to. It doesn't say you have to or we are going to do this. It says we encourage.
Thank you, Madam President.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Steve Wings. I want to make sure I understand your answer here in that when it was proposed, should there be something happening again, a COVID-like situation where there were restrictions put on operation of salons and masking, that sort of thing, your answer to that, whether you would comply or not, was you would consider.
When he asked me earlier, I did say yes.
So you said you would comply.
Yeah, there's no way for me to go through this again.
Is there any other state law or board regulation that you believe doesn't apply to you?
No. I know COVID wasn't a state law. There was no laws with COVID. I'm proud to stand up for my rights.
And all board regulations you will comply with and continue to comply with?
Absolutely, I always have. In this case, again, I feel you guys found something that fit the puzzle for the uniqueness of COVID, but I have always followed the board's regulations. My salon is kept 100% at board regulations. Again, I had 3 visits since my license was revoked, and there was 0 violations in each one of those.
This is obviously one very serious violation you had. That's all the question I have.
I actually have one more question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Just state your name again, please.
Jacob Rostovsky. Is it then, am I understanding correctly that if a mandate were to go back in place and you were to follow that mandate, it's in order to avoid the hassle of what's going on here and not for consumer protection?
Well, it would be for both.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Yee, anything?
Just a brief closing, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Petitioner has the burden of demonstrating rehabilitation and fitness for reinstatement by clear and convincing evidence to a reasonable certainty. If the petition is granted, people request that reinstatement be subject to completion of all licensing requirements, including payment of any fees and costs. Pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 125.3, Board cannot reinstate petitioner's license without full payment of costs. Petitioner has an outstanding cost recovery of $11,542.50. The people further request that the license be immediately revoked upon reinstatement, the revocation stayed, and petitioner be placed on probation for a term deemed appropriate by the court with standard conditions 1 through 16 in the board's disciplinary guidelines and other optional conditions of probation that the court believes are necessary. Pursuant to the recommended language for applicants and reinstatements in the disciplinary guidelines, the people also recommend that petitioner be ordered to retake and successfully complete the licensing examination and remedial education courses relevant to the violations prior to reinstatement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any closing argument?
I would just like to say that I'm not a bad person. Maybe I had a certain stance I wanted to take, and I believed in it, and I did. There's a lot of things in my case that I think speak huge volumes, and I will continue to go back to the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of licensees and establishments under the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, and there was 4 of us. And there was still hundreds of thousands of licensees and establishments that were doing exactly what I was doing, other than the fact that I was very loud about it, that I went on TV and that I did what I did. I strongly believe that my First Amendment rights were violated by taking me to court and putting all my social media and news outlets in that court case, used them as exhibits against me. I strongly believe that I'm trying to think of how to word this. I do strongly believe that in me filing for a reinstatement of my license, I wasn't under the assumption that there had to be certain things taken or done to rehabilitate. I don't know what else to do other than we don't have to wear masks anymore. We don't have to social distance anymore. We don't have to work outside. We don't have lockdowns. So I'm not sure what else I could rehabilitate myself on other than I simply was standing up for my rights. I felt incredibly attacked. I felt incredibly targeted. And if I went through it along with a few others, then everyone that was doing it should have gone through it too.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttal?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. So this matter is closed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm able to leave, to actually leave.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Very much. We will now be moving into close up. Did you need any other information?
No, I think I'm going to get the,
Each count?
yes, later. So it's okay.
So we will now be moving to closed session to discuss the disciplinary matters that we just reviewed. So we will reconvene for open session after we finish. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to reconvene today's board meeting. Thank you for joining us today. We have quite a bit to go over on our agenda, but before we do that, I just wanted to briefly commend Christy and the board staff for how much was achieved between even just our last board meeting in January. I just wanted to do just a quick highlight. I'm happy we were able to implement the written examination in simplified Chinese. The incredible progress we've already made towards the cosmetology licensure compact and towards the remedial education as a substitute or as a first step for initial citations. So a lot of great things, and more of which you'll hear about today. And with that, I will move over to board member updates. Are there any board members who would like to speak or provide information on any items? All right. Seeing none. All right. Let's move on to item number 5, discussion and possible approval of the January 23rd, 2023 board meeting minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes, and are there any recommended changes or amendments that need to be made to the minutes? I'm not seeing anyone raise any hand. Oh, yes.
Can I just make a comment on this? It's really, we get extraordinary, I want to make a comment on this. We get extraordinary detail on these, and I think it's really something that whoever does the minute service we use, whoever does a really good job, because that's very important for us to follow up on our next board meeting on the past board meeting. So I think there's like 26 pages of minutes of January 23rd, but it's all very positive. It's good.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Okay. If we don't have any amendment or changes, can I get a motion to approve these minutes?
So
motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So that's a motion to approve from Vice President Fairley and a second from Member Weeks. Let's go to public comment. Anywhere? Is there anyone online, or we're streaming on
We
WebEx?
don't have online today.
Oh, we don't. Okay. Well then, anyone here who'd like to comment on the minutes? All right.
People watching it, but it's not online.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So if there is no public comment, let's call for a roll call vote.
Callie Mae Pam,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Hernandez,
Yes.
Clark Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Williams,
Yes.
Jacob Rostowski,
Yes.
Steve Weeks,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to item number 6, Executive Manager Reports. Christy, take it away.
All right, thank you. We are going to start with our administration and operations report. This is, of course, in your packet. We provided a staffing update. The board continues to sort of lose people to promotions, retirements, and gain new people as well. It's hard to keep up with this. But for this particular unit, it's very current. We have 2 new staff that are just starting with us to take over budgets and our regulations desk. We have a lot to cover, so stop me at any time. We've done some career outreach. Carrie Harris and Alex Torkelson have been doing some work with the Sacramento Valley Small Business Development Center. It's been very successful. They've done quite a few meetings with them, and we're actually planning to do more. This is with a group of individuals that the county has set up. Is it through the county? This private organization that reached out to us and kind of like to help people with their businesses. So it's a meeting with establishment owners in Sacramento County. We're hoping that is going to be looking at expanding throughout California. We have also done some Meet the Employer. This is something that Danielle has helped us with in the beginning. We've been working with Sacramento State University, and it's really taken off. We've done a few meetings with them on how to become an employee of the state, and it just seems it's been really successful. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from Sac State. We have also done several meetings at local high schools, not only to talk about being an industry, getting into the industry, but also becoming potentially a state employee. And so thank you, Yolanda, for that. We took Yolanda's lead, and we actually contacted several high schools, and we've gotten quite the response for that. So not only has Natalie and Alex have been attending various high schools, but we've also sent out information to high schools that wanted our information in writing. So we've sent a lot of information out for their career days. Super excited about that. Our office just had customer service training. We did an entire statewide, board-wide customer service and diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And then our last big note is relocation of our board office. We have been looking to downsize a bit because we have telecommuting now. We are finding we have lots of empty space in our office. DCA had a lot of open space in their office, and they happen to have a suite
at our HQ1. So that's the building that has the little cafe. Some of you maybe have been in the past. So we are looking to actually move to that building probably January of the coming year. And that will actually be a little bit less of a rent for us. So it's going to be a lot of work because we have to clean and I'm a hoarder, so we're starting right now. So we are super excited to move to that building though because we appreciate that it has a lot of extra security added. We already maintain our vehicles over at that building because we've had some security concerns at our current building, even though it's a mile away. It's just a different, it's not on the main road, so it's a little more secluded. So we're super excited for that.
Actually, a quick question.
Yes.
Going back to outreach, we now have a lot of licensee specialists on the board that we didn't have before. Is it possible to utilize board members in any way in outreach?
Sabina?
You mean attending conferences
Or talking at events to see if people were interested in joining our profession, maybe at schools, maybe, whatever. It's just that we have these specialists now that can answer these questions.
Right, we just have to make sure we don't have enough board members together in one place because that would constitute a meeting.
Sure. I mean, it could be one board member at a time going somewhere.
Yeah, I think that your executive officer and your staff could reach out when they have something maybe in your area, if it might be something that you might be interested in attending as support for the staff or as an expert.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to page 3 is our budget and our current budget expenditures. And then the next page, on page 4, is our budget fund condition. We'll go ahead and move on to licensing. Again, we have our staffing update. We have some new staff that have started with us. Then, of course, we had a couple that have left, so we're kind of breaking even. We still have several vacancies in our licensing unit that we are looking to fill. Our emails have skyrocketed again. We're not sure why. We are not processing anything at a backlog, but we are receiving a lot of email questions. Some of those vacancies that we're looking to fill are going to be dedicated to that task. It's just been a struggle to get these positions filled. And since this was, since our last board meeting, we did have a town hall and with PSI, our exam vendor, and that's when we actually went over the cosmetology content for the exam. And then at the last board meeting, we talked about reciprocity candidates, and the board had questioned what is provided to a reciprocity candidate when they receive their license. And so we wanted to show you exactly the information that we send them when they apply and are approved for reciprocity. So I believe one of the questions was, you know, are we telling them that they're responsible for knowing and following the board's laws and regulations? So we wanted to just show you this is what is provided to those candidates.
Chrissy, thank you for that, because that was one of my biggest issues, because people will often, the concern was they come over here, we give them reciprocity, but what is it that they are informed that they need to do? So this was the ownership back in them, so if they are inspected or whatever, they can't say they didn't get that information. So.
All right, and then we're going to go into our licensing statistics. Our quarterly applications received. You can see for January through March, we have increased quite a bit, from 12,000 the quarter before to up to over 15,000 applications received. And then we have our examination stats. The examination stats do continue to be low. We are showing you quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3. We do have a meeting scheduled with the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary next month. And in that meeting, we're going to really be seeing what we can do to partner with some of the schools that are notoriously have very low pass rates. And seeing what we can do on our end to provide any type of relief to students that are at schools that are not getting proper education.
Perform with that.
So, well, we're going to meet with the Bureau and we're going to review, the Bureau is responsible for quality of education. So we will be working with them and seeing what they can do to assist us because it is my opinion that it is a quality of education issue.
Christy, I just wanted to note on page 4, the written exam results for out of country. It doesn't look like those stats for the quarter 3 are correct. And since we, kind of compare quarter to quarter, I just wanted, so for barbering, for example, only 2 passed out of 36. So
Yes.
that would be 6%, not 21%.
Thank you.
Electrologists, 0 out of 2 would be 0%, not 100%. And then manicure, 12 out of 51 would be 23%. So yes, just because these stats carry over when we compare.
Yes, we will make sure that's corrected.
Thank you.
You'd be shocked how many eyes look at this.
I would also just like to commend you for bringing in Chinese translation as well. I know President Pham mentioned that earlier, but it's a big help, and I know you went out of your way to do it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so continuing on, page 6 shows our breakdown of pathways. So we start out with the apprentice program. We go into our out-of-country schools, and then page 12. Was it page 12? Shows our school programs, and then we get into our new report. It's very nice, but I want to plead to the board to not ask us to continue with the bell curve.
Oh my God, my big question mark is on there.
I think it's really informative. It does show, if you're looking at page 13, it does show where people are falling with the actual scores. But this was completely done manually, and it was very, very time-consuming. But it does look good. And so it's some very interesting information. So that first page is the barber exam, and it shows you that the people that are failing not by a lot. So they're right in the middle there. And then moving on, we have that, of course, we did it for each of our license types. And if you have any questions, my mathematician here, Carrie, will be able to answer them for you.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know, maybe I missed this. Are we able, so with this, like here, for example, barber passing score 75, overall average 69, so they're missing, if my math is correct, by 6 points. Are we able to kind of see like what categories those points are in? Because I know like with the BBS, the points are kind of cumulative, right? Or like the different points in each section. So if for some reason you've missed the majority of law and ethics, that's the area that we need to do better teaching on. So long-winded question is, do we know what those 6 points average are?
Today, no, we do not. But it's something that we're closer to getting.
Awesome.
By school. So we're actually, PSI has just implemented, we just don't have the data enough yet. Am I correct? Yes. That we'll be able to start looking at specific schools and where their students are, what content area their students are doing poorly in. And then we could do some outreach with those schools to talk to them about that.
And if you had to make a holding to it guess, right? Just a educated guess, where do you think the deficit might be?
I would have no guess.
Okay. I ask because my curiosity is it around health and like hygiene is like the category people are missing. Like I'm wondering like where, that's just my own curiosity.
All right, we're going to move on to page 18, which shows our licenses issued. I'm sorry, did I skip a page?
We're page 10. You're reading the.
There's 2. Yes. Okay, executive management report, page 18 of 46. So we have our licenses issued, and then our licenses issued for the last 5 years. And then our next page is our current license population. Page 20 is our disciplinary review committee stats. Thank you to those who have served on disciplinary review so far this year. We have another one next week. That's really going to bring us current. We will have much less cases, so we'll look at maybe doing a day in Sacramento if we can. I think that's all we would probably need, and we could probably do that to kind of catch up even more so for the northern appeals. And then we'll look at, we tend to get more appeals for southern, so that number will grow eventually. All right, moving on, page 21 and 22 are more of our disciplinary review committee stats. Past the blue page, we go into our enforcement unit. And we, of course, are providing a staffing update as well as our vacancies. We are hopeful we have some new inspectors pending. We've recently done interviews and we've gotten some good candidates for some inspector positions. So hopefully by next board meeting, that vacant report will be a little bit smaller by county. We just recently hired a new probation monitor, so we have him just started, I believe, last week before. But we have 136 open cases that are on probation. We're providing our information of that we have sent to the Attorney General's office. Our extern information, we're continuing to watch that. We're actually doing some work on externs, getting some inspections conducted at where these externs are working to see if we can make sure that they are being properly trained and supervised.
Christy?
Yes.
Quick on that, I know we touched on it before, but is there anything in play to identify the externs correctly? We talked about they only get, like a piece of paper saying that they're an extern and not identifying who they are as an extern?
They have to have a school ID badge, so that's required. And then we are working on regulations for externs, so more of that will be coming.
One more quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone with a license in this industry be an inspector? Just curious.
Yes, it's not a required that you're a licensee. It's a requirement. Right now, the current requirements is a certain amount of units. 12
Criminal justice.
of criminal justice. So there's some background in criminal
Okay.
justice.
Okay.
We're actually looking to try to take that away because we don't think it's needed. But that's a very long process that we've been working on for several years.
But a license in this industry doesn't negate them, doesn't
Correct.
disqualify them. That's right. Just curious.
All right, at the bottom of page 24, you'll see our complaints. And so we've gotten a little bit more complaints than we did the prior quarter. And then we're showing you our pie charts of how we break down our complaints that are received between the various categories. The next couple of pages are our detailed enforcement statistics. Our citations is on page 28. On page 29 of this report, we show our request for payment notices. And then our last page of this report, we show our payment plans. Any questions?
When do we write off a payment?
For the payment plans?
What level?
For payment plans, well, citations in general, if it's outstanding, then we'll send out a notice around 30 days late, and then 60 days late, and then 90 days late. And then if they have a social security number, we can send them to the franchise tax board. And if they don't have a social security number, then we can send them to collections. And if we haven't had any...
Which is an outside collection bureau.
If we don't have any payments that are made within 3 years, Then we can send a notice or a form to the controller's office and ask them if we can write it off. If they say we can, then we can write it off. They can still pay the fine if that comes down to it later, but we can write it off after that very lengthy process, and we get approval.
Okay, we'll move on to our outreach update, which is page 31. The top half of this is items that I've talked about, our town hall and our various outreach events that we've attended. We did also attend on April 2nd through 3rd the Premier Anaheim Trade Show. And then I wanted to, I mentioned earlier that we talked to a lot of high schools. We contacted 25 high school districts, and over 500 pamphlets were sent out about how to pick a cosmetology or barbering school.
That's awesome.
And we can thank our new Marcine. I'm trying to stop calling her Natalie for that effort.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yes, it's important.
We've also listed on the next page our email blasts that we've been sending out.
Oh, one thing I wanted to add about the addition of Chinese, thank you. I actually informed a number of the elected officials in San Francisco of the press release so that they would know, especially the ones representing Chinatown and heavy Chinese areas of the city. So they were very pleased.
Nice, thank you. We did, our public information office also sent that out to different Chinese media resources as well. And then we have our one future outreach that will be here, in Southern California, May 20th and 21st. I think it's just one day for the Jazzy Beauty and Barber Trade Show. Moving on, we have our SB 803 implementation plan. We wanted to keep this in here as there's still some items that we are continuing to implement. The hairstylist only license, that examination has been completed. We have notified schools that if they're interested in offering that course, they need to have their course approved. It is still anticipated that that will be implemented on July 1 of 2023. Our pre-apprentice training program, we are very close to having a contract with a vendor on that who is working with us to develop an actual online program similar to what you all have just recently gone through for the board. We've all done ethics and sexual harassment training, so it's kind of that type of setup that we're looking at. We hope that this is very close to being completed. Let's see. We've just provided the information on how many schools have moved to the new curriculum. Our externs, we are continuing on that regulation package, as I mentioned, and as well as our fines. We're going to talk a little bit later, the status of our health and safety regulations that the Health and Safety Committee has reviewed and is recommending to come to the board. And then once we have that, we'll be re-looking at our fines with the new health and safety regulations to make sure that they are all in line with what the legislature wanted us to look at. And then next is new, and this is our strategic plan. This is what we use to track all of our objectives for our strategic plan and where we are on each task.
If you kill the bell curve color, keep the color on these.
Okay.
We want more graphs.
I think that's the end of my report. Just making sure, and yes, that is the end of my report.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Christy.
You're welcome.
All right. Do we have any other questions or comments from board members regarding this item?
I have one question about, let's see, the passing score workshop that were offered for the hairstylist license. Can you tell me a little bit more about those?
So that's done through DCA's Office of Professional Examination Services. So they developed that exam for us, and what they have an entire process of what they do. So they based it off the occupational analysis, and then what they had us do is recruit people from the industry for different workshops. And once they get the exam developed, they then go back through with a different set of experts to set the passing scores for each. I believe they rank each question, and that's how they determine what the score, how the score will take place once that exam is implemented.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. At this time, let's take public comment on item number 6, the Executive Officer's Report.
I'm Wendy Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. To Mr. Weeks' comment to Sabina regarding board member outreach and being able to engage with organizations and groups, I would like some clarity at some point from the board as to whether we can have a board member that might have a specialty of inclusion. We have a lot of conversations around inclusion, especially in our waxing services as estheticians, and we would like to engage with a particular board member and their specialty in inclusiveness and making sure everyone is represented and our language is fair with our clients. Also missing from the notes, hopefully the board can get back on board with the town hall that wasn't the other day, and maybe we'll get notification of when that's going to happen again. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Seth Kaplan from Crew Institute of Cosmetology and Barbering from the school in Orange County. Good afternoon. I just wanted to comment about the hairstyling license. I just hope that the board is prepared to be able to deal with individuals that might be performing services that they're not allowed to perform under that type of license. And if it's been thought about and how exactly they would be able to enforce that, make sure that we protect the barbering, the cosmetology community, and those individuals that work very, very hard to get those types of licenses and make a living doing that. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, state board members, Ken Williams, former state board member. Outreach is so vitally necessary. It's been lacking for years. I have a school, my school has a history of 94 years. It's the Universal College of Youth. I don't think there's another school older in the state of California. I don't know why I'm a little nervous, but I used to sit over on that side, so I shouldn't be. I just want you all to know what I've learned over the 20 years, because it's been 20 years since I was a board member. Okay? Continuing education is vital, and this board has not addressed it completely. There needs to be continuing education for licensees that fall into a category that it doesn't seem like our board has a clear solution. Now, I know our board is getting into remedial education, but I don't know if the board is equipped to do remedial education. Now, I've been a school owner and educator for 38 years. So I know the curriculum. I know what it takes. I've been a salon owner for 18 years. In fact, I'm the only board member, I think, that's been on a ride-along with inspector. Any of you been on ride-alongs with inspectors?
It's in the works.
It's in the works. See, I demanded it when I was a board member. And I demanded to go to the state board exam site and see how the barbers were doing with the state board exam. And I saw barbers that took the exam only got 2 or 3 points. See, so I know what you need to know. The problem with our board is that some of you, 5 or 6 years from now, you'll be gone. Yet you'll have a lot of experience, and then here comes new people. And they don't understand the problems that exist out there. This industry is the #1 woman-owned business in America. More women own beauty salons, more men own barbershops than any other thing. And like I said, the outreach is not there. I remember when Christy walked into my school. I remember when state board representatives went to schools and questioned schools. Now I don't see a school owner on our board.
Thank you and welcome back.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments on this item? Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 7. Review and possible approval of 2023 Board Member Guidelines and Procedurals Manual. Chrissy, will you give an overview of the changes?
I sure will. So at our last meeting, we had made some suggestions, and we are bringing this back to the board for approval. This is on our board member guidelines and procedures. We did not bring the entire packet back to you. We only brought the pages that had some edits. And on in your packets, you'll see that we added the license types and scopes as information. This goes to any new member as soon as they get appointed, so we thought that was super important. We have added a diversity, equity, and inclusion section. This was recommended at our last board meeting, and this is the language that we actually worked with the Department of Consumer Affairs. They have a steering committee on the diversity, equity, and inclusion, so they helped us provide that information. Along those same lines, we have added an additional standing committee, and that standing committee is on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've talked to a few of you about that so far, and we think that most of you who have recently gone through Senate confirmation process were all asked questions about this, so I think it's really important that the board have a committee and kind of talk about different areas that we could improve. Especially our industry is one of the most diverse in the state. We also added the words pending to the Legislation and Budget Committee. That's on page 10. And then on page 11 is what we have defined our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And that's it.
Question.
Go ahead.
2 things. First of all, I'm pleased to see the issue of DEI being here. Are we going to have specific people assigned to that committee, and will that be discussed today, or will that need to wait?
It's not going to be discussed today, but the board president has the authority to appoint people. That doesn't have to be at a committee.
Okay.
So if you have an interest.
Yes. Thank you. My second point is regarding the change to the Legislative and Budget Committee. I just wanted to address that if I could. During our strategic planning sessions in 2022, we as a board discussed the concept of enlivening our board standing committees that had been dormant for many years prior. There were some growing pains, and I want to acknowledge and apologize to my fellow members, board staff and personnel, and public for my relatively outspoken commentary at the January board meeting regarding the concept. In those moments at the last board meeting, I began to feel that the cancellation of the committee's January meeting, which had been scheduled for early January, had been a mistake for which I felt responsible. And at the time, I had been under the impression we didn't have any immediate business for the committee other than procedural items. However, at the January board meeting, in my view, it seemed like we should have had a meeting that month. And it would have been an opportunity for our committee to weigh in and delve into many of the detailed conversations we were ending up having at the board level. Following that discussion, we had our February board committee meeting, and I put together an agenda for that, which included a time for us to discuss and think through what we wanted to do as a committee, and what I hoped we could come collectively together on for that. I am pleased to say that we all thought we had a well thought out conversation, and we came to a resolution, which you see before us with the word pending. We unanimously moved forward with that change. I will say it's not exactly what I had originally pursued for the committee's work, but I'm more than happy to have the conversation and come to a consensus among our committee, and that we're all on the same page now. As you can see, that this will be a new edit, but the last time this was edited for committee roles was in 2006, so it has been a while. There is always a potential future time when we might edit again, but I do think that this change will help us to make sure we're all on the same page, and I really appreciate everyone going through that conversation with me, both here at the board level as well as at the committee level. And I'm pleased to be working on this, and I will encourage passage for the word pending in our section. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Isbell. Member Reed, did you have a comment?
I did have a comment on the disciplinary review committee. So I'm sorry. On the disciplinary review committee, it's always, we've always had difficulty filling those 3 spots. But part of our reason was because we didn't have the size board we have today. Now we have a large board, and we're diverse in the areas that we live inside the state of California. So that's a very good thing. But I don't think we should treat disciplinary review committee as a bit of a stepchild. It's the only committee that doesn't have a chairman. So I think maybe, and my concern is.
Are you volunteering?
My concern was the horizontal structure has always been good. We've been able to get people to fill in that committee, that'll be better. But the vertical structure could probably use some improvement. The things we learn inside that committee to be translated up to this board level, so the board members know that there may be regulation changes that should be inputted because of what we've learned at DRC. All of that would be very good to have. So I'm hoping that maybe we could do something.
It's funny, thank you, Steve, because I actually would have a comment on the DRC too. Like, for those of you who have not served on the DRC, I think it's important to always have an industry member at these meetings at the DRC. Because what we find, as Steve said, like, you learn things, but I find that it's very important that someone from the industry is also versed in the laws and regulations and how the practices are actually applied, because oftentimes things come up that are application issues that the licensee should or should not be penalized for. So I would encourage anyone in the industry, whether you're an esthetician, electrologist, think about serving on the DRC. I've been doing it now, and we come out with some new rules and regulations in our head.
No, that's the problem. That's the problem. And it just doesn't get translated.
Yes,
Yeah.
So I totally hear you.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, Christy, I don't mean to put more. I know we have a lot of committee meetings these days. It sounds like what members are hoping to see is something where we can kind of combine and share our knowledge and our experiences at DRC beyond just having the hearings themselves and then taking that information back with us. So some way to synthesize that and then generate ideas for moving forward from that. I don't know if that could fit in well with one of the existing committees, kind of summaries from DRC. So I don't know exactly what that would look like. We're just bringing it on you now, and so I don't know if you know what that could look like.
Well, we'll have to check, because DRC and health and safety are 2 statutorily mandated committees.
Right.
So the others we created ourselves.
Yeah.
So we would just need to double check to see what we would need to do on that.
What about like enforcement and inspections committee?
Yeah.
Like that might be a nice landing spot to bring.
Education and outreach, because because
Mhm.
they're there because of the lack thereof of education. And I think, speaking on the last part of DRC, this one was very interesting because we had a lot of tool issues in the DRC. So I think in DRC it covers everybody's
Yeah,
committee.
really good.
If
Maybe
we
like
have-
outward facing would be education, and then
Yeah.
back end, what we need to do would be
But
enforcement.
it's assuming that a member of the DRC actually sits on that committee too. So it could be a little problematic in where it goes up the organization chart. That's why I thought having something on its own.
Well, I do think, staff is always present for the DRC meeting. So in that information or trends that come up during DRC, I think that could be, just so that we're not adding another committee onto the calendar. I think that it's a great point that we should be addressing these trends that come up for DRC. But again, it might better be slotted in as an agenda item for an existing committee. So I heard suggestions for, was it enforcement and inspections or or health and safety?
Both.
Enforcement and inspections or
And
health and
outreach.
safety?
Education and outreach.
Oh,
Yeah, like
and
one's
health
for
and
us
safety.
and one's for the licensees.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We don't have to do that now.
Yes. So those are possibilities, and that might be a way to address it without having to set up a whole structure for.
The one concern I would say about having a committee meeting of DRC is that every one of you is on DRC,
Exactly, right.
and so then it's the board meeting.
Mhm.
So, which we could also do. We could also place an agenda item on our board to talk about. I mean, we can do it at
Yeah.
the board level as
That
well.
Yeah.
might be a
That would
that
be
might be a
okay.
good solution. That might be.
That sounds better.
There we go.
That's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Okay. That's great. So.
Fit it in.
So we will we'll table that, come back to that for future agenda items for the board
Love
meetings.
it.
Great. Chrissy, I did have a question about the new diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. So again, at this time, you don't need volunteers, or are you envisioning it to be a standing committee?
I envision it to be a standing committee. I do not envision it meeting as often as the other committees. I was thinking maybe twice a year.
Okay.
I know some of you I have reached out to already, but if you're interested, I think you can just let us know.
Okay, wonderful.
Is there a way that eventually, like, I think all of us should be involved in that, not just people who volunteer? So I just want to make a recommendation that we find a way that everyone participates on that in the first year of implementation.
Agreed.
That's only twice.
That would be very
Yeah, only twice a year. But I feel like all of us should be participating in that conversation.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Well, sorry. I think that's something that the board president and the EO will work on and figuring out scheduling, especially if it only meets a couple times a year, but a way to balance it out so that we can get a lot of participation, but still be a committee.
Okay. In my reading of this language, do we intend it to be both outward facing and inward facing? As in, what increasing DEI in how we reach out to our licensees and the public, or did we? Because it ends with employee engagement, and so I was just.
We thought both.
Okay.
And some of the main issues that have been brought up are schools and how they're teaching hair analysis, and are they teaching textured hair? Are all schools teaching textured hair? Are we reaching out to different vulnerable communities to ensure that they are aware of how to file a complaint with us, because it could be an uncomfortable situation, which I think we're going to talk about in a little bit. So I think I envisioned it being really a way for the board to make sure we're reaching out to ensure that our industry is addressing diversity and inclusion, as well as internally with our staff. We've already had, we've had 2 trainings internally that we initiated just with our staff, just because we are a very diverse staff as well, as is our board. So we're trying to just get ahead of it. So we would also be looking for any types of recommendations that the committee would have on how we could better improve that as well.
Thank you, Chrissy. Are there any other questions or comments from other board members on this item? Okay. Seeing none, can I get a motion to hopefully approve?
I motion to approve the
All
update.
right, can we get a second?
I second.
Okay, that's a second from Vice President Fairley. Oh wait, can we take public comment on item number 7?
Wendy Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. To the point of having an agenda item to discuss the DRC and the incoming and outgoing information that you are all seeing, I feel that that would be very important to have that public facing. You mentioned a couple of times trends in, especially in the aesthetics industry. We have a new machine that comes out every week, and and no, by no fault of the board internally or the board here, if I told you about all these machines, you would have no idea what all of them do. So I feel that you kind of need to have a little transparency, because if you were not understanding the machine and it really is something that is in our scope of practice, you don't understand why, you kind of need to call that to attention, because then you'd be citing licensees for practice of medicine without license because you didn't understand that this is just a plain old regular current, or this is nanotechnology that doesn't have metal in it, it's not a needle, and things like that. So I feel that if you did add that, that would be very beneficial, especially in the space of aesthetics and the new machines that we come up with every single day. So thank you for that consideration.
Hello again. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, such an important part of our industry. It has to, the outreach has to, it has to be. It's no other way. We have to have it, and it's not enough of it. So I want to encourage you to be more diverse. I'm looking at the panel now. I celebrate whoever appointed you, because we have a mixture of people here. And you know, we're all human beings. We all got to work together. And I want to be included. And for example, I think unless the laws change, you can be licensed at 15 years old, 10th grade. Is that correct, Kristen?
It depends on the license day. Like you have to have 10th grade education.
Yeah, 10th grade. Okay, so you've already reached out to the high schools with their 10th graders. But they have to wait years before they can get a license, because the high schools won't tell them you can get a license in 10th grade. See, and then DPPE comes in and they says, oh, no, 18. There's confusion as to how old you have to be a licensed cosmetologist. I believe it's 10th grade, 15 years old. How many 15-year-old licensed cosmetologists? My background is different. I bet anybody in here can't tell what I am, because I'm diverse. Okay? I'm a mixture of people. Just like all of you are a mixture of people. We're all mixtures together. So, I would love to encourage a young lady in my school to get their license at 15 years old. I would love it, because they get a start in life early. It used to be, we used to have an ROP program through LA Unified, 25 years in ROP program. The students could start in high school. Where is that now? Nowhere. And yet you go around the streets of LA and you see empty buildings, empty. Storefronts, beauty salons can survive in a storefront. Barbershop can survive in a storefront. And this is a business where two people can sit up right next door to each other and make a living. And yet, I don't know, there's a disconnect. Somewhere there's a disconnect. I don't know why we have to have dual oversight. As a school owner, as a salon, I don't know why. Somebody can answer that. Why do we have to have dual oversight? I think all the bad schools are gone now. There's a feeling I have, I'm getting it from the state, that my school is a bad school. And it hasn't done what it was supposed to do, to train people. I reject that. I reject it from anybody that wants to come here, and I dare anybody to come into my school. I encourage you. But our schools are getting a bad rap. Schools are getting a bad rap. There are some schools that need help. But, you can't take a school and say, oh, that's a bad school. You can't say, oh, that's a bad elementary school or a bad junior high school. It's the people in the schools. Now, I listened very intently to the appeal hearings today. And the gentleman, the first thing I thought about, I'm sorry I'm getting off the case, but I'll cut it off. I will. I said, well, here's a gentleman, he lost his license, he wants to get it back. It's important. But you shouldn't, the board shouldn't have to be concerned with that. That should be a remedial education problem. And let him go back to school and let him be monitored and checked. But it seems like the schools are being cut out of the equation. And that's really why I'm here. That's why I traveled 2 hours to be here this morning as a former board member. I understand. I'm a Calumet fan. I understand your position. I was a board member for 1 day, president. Only 1 day. Richard Hedges was out of town. Was board member for 1 day, vice president for a while. So I'm trying to reach out to all of you and tell you I understand your position. And I want you to unchain Christy Underwood, unchain her, because there's certain things that the board can do that she can't do. For example, inspectors. I'll finish with this one. Inspectors needing a criminal justice background, criminal justice background, come on, that could get fixed. So let's fix some things, board.
Thank you. Great, are there any other public comments? And again, we are on item number 7. There's a motion to approve the new language for the board.
You have one more public comment?
Yes, please.
Well, I want to make sure that
I just want to clarify what the, so would you like to comment on this motion?
Can you refresh my memory?
Yes, so we're on item number 7, and there's a motion to approve the 2023 board member guidelines and procedural manual. So as a reminder, we also have an item for public comment for items not on the agenda. So if it's not related to item number 7, you will have an opportunity to speak later.
Okay.
All right, great. Is there any other public comment on item number 7? Okay. Can we have a roll call vote?
Kelly McMahon?
Yes.
Tom Garrett?
Yes.
Megan Ellis?
Yes.
Kelly Clark?
Yes.
Lisa Isbell?
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez?
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Danielle Munoz?
Yes.
Jacob Rosowski?
Yes.
Steve Lee?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, at this time, we do still have quite a few items on the agenda, so I'm going to call a short lunch recess. Let's come back. It's 12:34:35 right now. Let's come back at 1:05 to reconvene. All right, we are reconvening our board meeting. Thank you, everyone. Just a quick reminder, for public comment, we are limiting it to 2 minutes per public comment. Just make sure we give everyone an opportunity to speak and that we're still able to move through the agenda items. And please limit your comments to the agenda item or the motion at hand. And as a reminder, for item number 15 is available for public comment for items not on the agenda. So with that, let us return to item number 8, overview of the electrology scope of practice.
All right, thank you. So on this agenda item, what we wanted to do was bring information to the board of our tiniest license type, tiniest population, but potentially one of the most risk to consumers. So it's becoming more and more popular. So we really wanted to just kind of do a highlight of this license type, just so that some people may not have ever heard of this service. So we provided a background information, and also we're super, of course, happy that we now have a licensed electrologist, Colette, on our board. But we want what this document does is just give the board some background information on exactly what electrology is. and how it's growing in popularity. This became apparent during the COVID pandemic. We had several electrologists that reached out to me during the pandemic because they were transgender individuals who, they have the patients who are transgender individuals, and they have contracted with hospitals, and they couldn't complete their service during the shutdowns because now medical could. But obviously, as we've heard a lot today, our industry was closed down. And one of the things is that could have been detrimental to somebody going through the electrology process because they have to keep up on their services. So we were able to work with the governor's office, and we were able to get an exception for electrologists after some time during COVID because it's so closely related to medical procedures. That being said, and that we know that, I thought it was important that we just make sure everybody understands what electrology is. I think one of our things, and also going back to our diversity committee, is our presence in the community and in some of these more vulnerable communities. It's not just, of course, different communities that seek electrology services. There's all different, a range of people who seek this service, but a lot of times these people don't want to complain. They might be embarrassed for whatever reason that they're choosing electrology services. And so, again, this agenda item was just to provide any information to you all in case you hadn't heard of electrology before. So we wanted to show you that there's different types of modalities that electrolysis use. Of course, this is an invasive procedure, something that we normally are so against in the cosmetology side and the aesthetic side, and make sure you're not doing anything invasive. But as you can see on the first page of the report, it is an insertion of a needle into the hair follicle. And then they have the different types of modalities that they use, the galvanic, the thermolysis, and then the blend. And I provided in here the scope of practice, the requirements for licensure. It's our one license type that requires 12th grade education as opposed to a 10th grade education for all of our others. Our current license population is only 1,570. I anticipate that that's going to slowly grow. It is a growing service that people are seeking out. And then I provided some information about electrology in the transgender community because I am in contact with one of our electrology schools on a regular basis, and she's aware, the owner of the school is aware of consumer harm that has taken place, and she's trying to encourage these people to complain to the state board, and it's not happening as much as we would like it to happen. So I really think there's maybe something we could do, maybe something we could talk about in our diversity committee on how we can reach out to make people feel comfortable to come to the board. I mean, we always tell people that they can remain anonymous with any complaints, but we want to make sure that people trust that and can trust that they can come to us if they've been harmed by electrolysis, because this isn't just a bad haircut. This is the harm can be quite severe. I listed the types of harm: infection, permanent scarring, changing in skin color. I think that's just a little highlight of what we could probably see that could go wrong. And again, I just think the future of this profession is something that's growing, and I think it something that we could get ahead of in some education, which we're going to start looking at, but we wanted to really just share that with the board because it's such a tiny licensed population, it often gets forgotten. And we wanted to just bring light to it and make sure everybody understands how the service is performed. And of course, if you have any questions about this type of service, we have a resident expert on our board. I'm obviously not it. So I know Colette helped me with this, and so any questions, I'm sure she'd be more than willing to help us understand. But again, it's just to highlight the profession, the risks that are involved, and anticipation that I can see this growing in the future.
Sort of questions and comments. One, as some of us, live in the world where a lot of clients mentioned here are being harmed and they're too afraid to report, but yet, we maybe as board members are aware of certain situations. How can we most ethically and appropriately act in order to ensure that this harm is not still happening?
Do you mean if you knew where the services were performed?
Yes.
Sabina, is there any concern with board members filing complaints?
No, because they'd be a member of the public.
Right.
They wouldn't be acting as a board member, but
Okay.
members of the public can always file complaints through our website, right? We have a portal.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And there was something else I was going to say. Also, too, I think it's important to note that, especially with marginalized communities and with electrolysis, this is what I just see is in my own world is there's usually only like one or two facilities that really provide this care that states that they're affirming and safe, right? And so what often happens is, and I could, you're the industry expert, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes they're too afraid to speak out because there's no other option. And so finding ways to highlight or bring forward that there might be other options, other places they can go to, because it's like, well, my skin is being damaged, but I'd rather have damaged skin than hair on my face, right? So that's often another reason why we don't come forward is because there isn't another option for us. Or we're going to go to someone who's unlicensed because they're cheap. Or we're going to go somewhere that will take us because, insurance companies won't do X, Y, and Z. So that's something also to consider.
Are we going to be reaching out to the transgender community and throughout the state in different locations, that kind of thing?
We haven't yet.
Okay. I know that there's a number of, like San Francisco has a city for transgender healthcare. There are a number of other types of organizations that are both government as well as nonprofit. It might be helpful for us to reach out to those community leaders in particular that can then disseminate more of our information on what they might be going through and not knowing that they can file something or what have you. It may be something that the community leaders may be able to help us with.
Any other comments or questions? I just wanted to clarify. So this is, just for my own understanding, this is different than laser hair removal, and laser hair removal would still be considered practice of medicine?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, I would just want to add thank you so much, Christy, for doing this, and I love being a part of this. And the thing is, too, is I have some clients who have filed grievances with insurances, and they usually, like if it's Kaiser, for example, they'll just try to send another referral to another, because Kaiser's kind of got it dialed in right now, which is a good thing. But for some people, like that means they have to travel great distances to find someone. Like I have people that travel all the way from the Bay Area, all the way up from the foothills to get treatment. But if they file a complaint with Kaiser, it usually just ends there. Kaiser may sever ties with an electrologist, but they don't let the board know. Mm-hmm. So there might need to be some outreach with insurance companies, because most of them, like I'm contracted with Sutter, Anthem, UC Davis, and Kaiser. So there, can be conversations to be had with them as well.
Yeah, and to that point, Colette, so I'm trying to think of like how much it doesn't conflict. So SB 923 was just passed into a law that basically is Transgender or TGI Inclusive Healthcare Act. And so what this states is that over the next year, a certain specific person who might be in this room is developing quality standards of care and assurance for TGI medical and mental health services, which electrolysis is included in that, because it is on an insurance company. So anything that could be paid for insures. So there's a quality and assurance component, and then a training development curriculum, which basically means that if you're cited and fined, you have to go through a specific amount of hours, which we haven't decided yet. So anyways, to your point, it's good to know that like if someone's being severed with an insurance company, right? Now in the next year, we're going to have ways to hold people accountable, and I think it'd be interesting. And maybe this is for the diversity committee to think about. Okay, so how do we hold people accountable, and then what is our responsibility to let insurance or let people they're contracted with know that they're literally breaking the law, because this is now a law signed by the governor. So I think this is a great moment to be having these conversations, because was it the California Department of is it CDPH? They're the ones who are overseeing this new mandate. So yeah.
I think what you just said should go to the point of education, right? Because if they're people will report this to their insurance, but then won't report it as a problem to the board. So somehow we have to figure out how to help them bridge that gap, because if they're reporting it to the insurance is so many times, insurance pay whatever.
Right.
So then that seems like there's a greater concern and something that we're missing.
Right.
So.
Thank you for all those insights. Any other comments from board members? Okay, at this time we will take public comment, and as a reminder, public comment is limited to 2 minutes and limited to the specific agenda item. So right now, the report on the overview of the electrology scope of practice. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Wendy Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. A lot of that credit also during the COVID pandemic goes to Scott Wiener, Senator Scott Wiener in San Francisco and his team with the LGBTQ caucus. When we reached out to him, they and some people in the assembly jumped out pretty quickly to get them back as essential because of the issues of these surgeries being canceled. You bring up an excellent point in that right now there's nothing in statute that requires any injury to be reported back to the board. This isn't just exclusive to electrology. This is if you're injured in a waxing session, if you are injured in a heel and you go to an insurance or an attorney, or you have a bad pedicure. Those reports don't go back to the board because there's nothing in statute that says that it has to be. So that is something that you could consider in the future for potentially seeing if you could get that carried to make that change to all of our scopes of practice and requirements under business and professions. And the other thing that you're going to see is a big generational shift in electrology right now. A lot of your electrologists are in their 60s and they took over for their mothers because this is one of the oldest license types that the board manages. Right, so this came back into, was it 1930 something or other, and that was the only way that hair removal was happening at that time. So mom started the business, then people like Jean Ogren in the Sacramento area, she took over, she's in her 70s and 80s now, she's out of the game. So you're going to see a lot of new electrologists that have very little experience going in and doing very important work. So that component of making sure that we have insurance reporting to the board these injuries and somehow tying that up is going to be really, really crucial for this to be successful in protecting consumers.
Thank you. Any other comments on this specific agenda item? Seeing none, let's move on to item number 9, report on the March 13, 2023 licensing and examination committee meetings. Edith?
Okay. Forgetting this. Keep forgetting that. Here. The committee right now, we're not breaking any new ground in what we're doing. We're just reinforcing several areas that the board is fortunate enough to have reported in great diligence at all of our board meetings. And that is the exam pass rates, looking by ethnicity on that. And it's something that will be focused on as a committee, as well as obviously the board's a very primary focus of the board there. And of course, since the staff came up with the analysis of what the schools were doing as far as school pass rate was concerned. We're also looking at that, and it's a great concern. It's a great concern because it's a problem that we have to solve, and I'm not sure we have a definite way of doing it right now. A lot of that is doing it on the staff to staff right now with talking with the private post-secondary education people. Anything new that I'm missing on that?
No.
That's basically it.
Wonderful, thank you. Any comments or questions from board members?
I have a question. So here on the examination table, I'm looking at the Spanish pass rate. So it was 9% in quarter one, 8% in quarter two, and then 19% in quarter three. Is that what I'm reading?
Which are
that
you
right?
looking at?
Right in the on the memo.
In the barber section. The barber section?
Yeah. Like say let's start with that one. Yeah, barber. Is that how I'm reading it? And then if you go to Cosmo, it's 12%, 13, and then 13. Like we're looking at Spanish. So we're just getting we
Yes.
get quarter. Okay. So.
And the other thing we're looking at right now, what does the differential in hours mean to all of that? Does that factor in here? Can we read anything into that? So that's something that's also we have to look at.
Because I was just looking at the numbers of like you went from 9 to 8 to 19, which is really good. I think the pass rate increased there. Do we have any idea of why? Any intervention maybe we've done in between those months?
So.
No. And then I was going to ask, do we have any schools that practice fully in Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. And so.
Well, I should say our board doesn't approve schools to do by language. We get this data by what they've taken their exam in. But the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary does approve a school to teach in Spanish or Vietnamese or any other language.
Okay, that's it. Because I'm still just concerned about the Spanish passing rates. They're so low.
Christy, for each category, are the numbers of people who take the exam similar from quarter to quarter? I know we look at percentages, but I'm always curious, do people tend to take exams more in certain quarters than others? We'll have to look.
We can double check. I would say that I would lead to think they are more consistent because we're pretty consistent in processing, but we can double check that and add that information.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right, so let's move on to public comment on item number 9, the licensing and examination committee meeting update.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, this is my first state board meeting, and I don't know all the protocols. A lot of information to take in, so sorry for raising your hand when I wasn't supposed to. But yes, I'm very concerned personally as new school director with the cosmetology passing rate with the state board. And I see that it looks like it's not like schools are failing miserably. It's like I see the average score is 73%. We all know it's 75% for a passing rate. So it looks like, like I said, the schools are just missing it slightly. I think what would be really helpful is getting a breakdown of each and every one of our graduates' exam results. I know we do get our quarterly reports where we can see pass or fail, but I think we just need to go in a little bit deeper to see what areas of concern needs to be addressed with our students. So that's about it. I just think that would be extremely helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How proud of a father do you think I am? State board passing rates, I've been dealing with them for years. They go up and down. If the board is concerned about really improving rates, then they might take a look at the fact that the filing fee is $125, but there's no practical anymore. We can actually take a page, we can do a lot of things. We can take a page from North Carolina. We used to have a school, I used to have a school in North Carolina. If the student didn't pass with a 75, but they passed with a 73, they issued their license and they let them go to work in a salon for 6 months. And then the salon owner had to write a report to see whether or not the student had successfully completed 6 months. I know that's outrageous. This is California. We don't do anything with California. But what if the filing fee carried the weight of allowing someone to take the exam a second time for free? That would improve the rates right away. Because I had a student last month that got a 74 and couldn't believe it. 74? Now in traditional school, a 74 is a C. It's not a fail. But a 74 is a non-passing grade with our state board. Maybe we'll look at, maybe we'll hire a psychometrician to understand what it is. Because the work is the work, and I see some people that are academically inclined do very well, others do not. 2 minutes? Is that all I get? Okay. Long story short, no more practical. The fee is $125. Consider allowing someone to take the test twice. The one that didn't pass the first time. Thank you.
Let's move on to item number 10. Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
We didn't see you because you're not that tall.
Very petite. It's always been my problem. Don't have a deep voice. What's scary is my 15-year-old son, his voice is deeper than mine. But he still looks like a 15-year-old boy. And I keep it, but it cracks once in a while. But, thank you once again, Seth Kaplan, current student of Cosmetology and Barbering. I'm a little confused looking at these two because they seem to have different numbers. They both say third quarter examination grades.
Yes,
But I'm
these ones
confused.
here are, there's an asterisk, and this is just for part of March.
Okay, that makes sense then. I guess I'm fortunate that my school has a really high state board passing rate, but it's not by accident. We spent a lot of time getting them ready. I mean, I deliberately went above 1,000 hours so that we could really just get them prepared strictly for the state exam. I figured that the written would be actually harder than practical, which was a shame because we were really good at practical as well. But that being said, what I do hear a lot is that I get calls from people that went to apprentice programs and ask me if I can help them pass the state board. And I used to actually do that. I used to actually let them come in and I wouldn't even charge them, I would help them, but now I won't. Because I'm tired of hearing how they've been taken advantage of, how they pay money when they're not supposed to pay money, how they call it an academy, an institution or something like that. They're basically unregulated. And the rates are horrible and the people are being taken advantage of. And so I've been told that there's only so much you guys can do, but I think that this is an issue that really needs to be addressed. You know, we're looking at barriers to entry, which was, I guess, what all SB 803 was about. Allowing people to go to apprenticeship programs and be unregulated, being taken advantage of is a huge, huge, huge problem. And it's just hurting this industry and making it more difficult for those of us that actually do have very high passing rates to continue and to be able to offer the services that we offer. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. Since Mr. Kaplan brought up the subject of apprenticeship, there's a new scan in town. And the new scan in town is fear-based, telling estheticians that they're going to lose things like lash extensions. And if you give me $2,500 in cash, I will apprentice you to be a cosmetologist. But don't worry, you don't have to actually learn how to do hair or color because all you have to do is pass the written exam. And you give me $2,500 in cash. This is happening in LA County right now. You give me $500 a week. We'll sign off your 3,200 hours, and you take the written exam, and it's only going to cost you $6,000. You don't have to go to Cosmo School. You don't have to learn how to do hair. And they are using this to manipulate people in our industry, and I'm mad as a hornet over it. And I'm going to find out who these people are, and I'm going to make sure that they stop. But this is happening right now. We have estheticians that are being told that they're going to lose their ability to do lash extensions. And they are being manipulated into this situation where they are being told that they can go through apprentice program to be a Cosmo, pay me all this cash, it will only be about $6,000, take a written exam, and that's what's going on. This is what's happening with these apprentice programs. We've always known that these are kind of just labor violations and extorting people to come in and work for free. This is another level that is happening, and the apprentice program really, really, really needs to get some real eyes on it, and some change needs to start happening. Thank you.
Sorry, it's 2 minutes per item.
I didn't address anything about the apprenticeship program.
Oh, we're not, we're still on item number.
I thought it was apprenticeship.
No, that was not the agenda item.
Okay, I just want to say I agree with them. And the apprenticeship program had problems 20 years ago.
All right, any other individuals not spoken on this agenda item, number 9? Great. Okay, so.
Sorry, I have one. Can I ask one question? Or did we pass it already, that moment? Okay, great. I like, did I lose my moment? Just a thought, maybe for the committee to discuss next time is maybe there's a way to do like focus groups or some type of like community. I don't want to say town hall because that's more of like people can kind of just come and we give information, but like a listening session or something just maybe around everything that's being discussed. And I always find that's helpful to find direction and like what community needs help with. So just throwing that idea out there, a listening group.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 10, report on March 13, 2023 Education and Outreach Committee meeting. So related but different. Tanya?
At the January 23rd board meeting, the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology decided to move forward with sending text messages to licensees by the scope of practice. The Education and Outreach Committee reviewed the cost of text messaging further at the March 13th committee meeting. You see in your attachment. The committee recommends to the full board to direct staff to postpone pursuing the text messaging program because of the cost. So once the fee study is completed, the budget can be assessed before making a costly decision on this outreach expenditure, and proceed, I believe, has some updates on the cost of that.
Yes, so it was much more than we thought. And keeping in mind that the state we have a certain contracting process that we have to follow. It's very strict. And what we found was that we are looking at, if we did a text message to 300,000 licensees, we have, of course, over 200,000 cosmetologists alone, we were looking at $144,000.
That's crazy.
Right.
For one text.
Sorry.
For one text to go out to everyone.
text.
Okay.
So again, it's a very, we have to go through the Department of General Services contracting requirements. So we have, there's very specific requirements we have to use. We have to use small businesses. I'm not a contracting expert, but there's a lot of requirements that we have to use. So we did get these formal bids. This is what it would be for the state to send text messages. So it's not something that we recommend at this time. One of the things that we stress to the committee is maybe we'll keep this in our back pocket, because as we all know, we are doing a fee study right now. We might have the potential to do something in the future. We'll keep it on our radar. We just do not think it's feasible at this time.
Any comments or questions?
I think I almost had a heart attack.
That can't be right because it is, the internet will let you message for free, but sure. Well, thank you for following up on that. I think there's no disagreement that that is not a good use of our funds at this time. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Yes.
Thank you, Chrissy, for that. The committee made recommendations on outreach opportunities and priorities. Some ideas have included live WebEx town hall events, review of the top 10 violations, and I think we just held one last week or 2 weeks ago?
We had one planned.
Yes. Oh.
We had some technical difficulties, and we will be rescheduling.
All right. But it's such a good idea, though, right? To the top 10 violations, and if we do it by scope of practice, it will definitely help people to kind of keep things in mind. Share, did you know, reminders for licensees. I won't say whose idea that was, but I think that was a really good idea. Facebook Live events, send listserv email blasts to targeted licensees, because one of the concerns was that we weren't sending out cosmetology updates to everybody because everybody isn't really concerned with what everyone is doing. So that was really good. To create Instagram Reels in each scope of practice. So that's a good way to outreach because everybody's on the internet right now. Explain different licensee types and also reiterate what falls under their scope of practice. Create press releases with the Department of Consumer Affairs and send them to the media outlets, including the Chinese and Spanish media. So try to be very inclusive with making sure we're targeting the right people. Promote simplified Chinese exam. Notify legislators about town hall events so they can share with their constituents. The committee reviewed updates made to the board website to be more user-friendly, which the updates and the pamphlets and everything that Chrissy and her team have been doing has been amazing. I even opened them up and read them. So sometimes you get in the habit of skimming through, but to know that there's something in there that's going to be eye-catching makes a big, big difference, especially being in the industry. So. The next committee meeting will review staff progress in outreach efforts.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments or questions from the other board members on the report?
Yeah, I think that's really smart to explain the scope of practice because I can't tell you how many folks in the industry were upset about the amount of money they did or didn't make during COVID. And I was like, the board's not responsible for your income. It's for the public safety. And so I just wonder if there might be an opportunity for that really just to describe our scope of practice very clearly so that there's not confusion, because if they think that, and clearly we're never going to meet that expectation, then that creates distrust from the board to the board, right? And we don't even know this is happening. So it's a really good way to get ahead of it, clear it up so folks manage expectations basically of our industry.
A lot of people aren't tapped into social media, especially if you have an older crowd, people that are on there a long time. So those who are tapped into social media word travels really, really fast.
Yeah.
So just kind of, when you touch all those bases, emails, internet, Facebook, Instagram, there's too many avenues for people to say they did not know. And so we're taking away that and getting ahead of that. Even me in my space, I had a side tell me the other day that she didn't know something, and I had to remember that I had to keep it together.
Yeah, right.
Because I know how information flows. So.
Yeah. And the last thing is the personal service permit and the mobile units. I would love to see those go up because I know it's being done, but can it be done, in a regulated way so the consumers are protected? And I think we can maybe start with relating to the licensees by saying, this was the way you made money. I'm glad that you found a way to keep practicing, but this is how we would prefer for you to do it, because I know coming out of COVID, a lot of folks probably are doing things out of their home. And again, I'm just thinking about the consumers and how can we help make it right for everyone on both sides.
I'm curious about who's going to be in these videos. Or a simpler way would just be to make a slideshow that moves and has music.
You can hire students. Marketing major interns.
All right.
Canva is the best tool ever. I'm just saying. I'm a graphic designer and I can't even write my own name. So
All right. Anything else from our board members? No? All right. Let's move on to public comment on item number 10. So the Education and Outreach Committee meeting report that Member or Vice President Fairley has reviewed. Any public comment on this item?
Real quick. I could get my son to do all your text messages. And it's a really, really micro, small business.
All right. If there's no other public comment, let's move on to item number 11, report on the March 13, 2023 Enforcement and Inspections Committee meeting. Danielle.
All right, so the Enforcement and Inspections Committee met on March 13th, and we discussed the current process for how we're inspecting salon suites. So that information is in your packet. The committee also provided a recommendation to staff to launch a social media campaign to provide information to unlicensed people on how to become licensed and to increase awareness of the board's enforcement unit. The committee will also receive an update on this at our next meeting. And then we've provided the information from the committee meeting in this board meeting packet. But there was a discussion about, the role of social media and folks putting their services out on Instagram. And there have been some complaints from consumers who've used those services. The board goes and investigates only to find that person's just operating individually. So we know that's an issue. We had some public comment on it as well. So that's a point of interest for this committee also, is just to kind of address that.
Thank you.
And there's no action needed by the board. It's just an update.
Any questions or comments on that report? All right, seeing none, let's move to public comment on item number 11, again, the Enforcement and Inspections Committee meeting update.
Good afternoon, board members. Fred Jones on behalf of the Professional Review Federation. I wanted to underscore Danielle's point about unlicensed activity. COVID changed a lot in the world, but certainly changed a lot in our industry. And there needs to be a course correction now. As we've gone out of the COVID crisis, we need to remind our licensees that they have to work a licensed establishment or have an PSP. Those are the only two options. Well, there's shut-ins, there's a couple very minor studios, but for the most part, those are really the only two at-large options. And the fact that they are so flagrantly violating this on their own social media accounts, they're putting a big fat target on their forehead. Any message to the state board can send. I mean, even if it's a bulletin that goes out that we are monitoring social media, people do anything with it because there's evidentiary issues with it. Anything like that would spread faster than COVID.
Plans in the works.
Sorry.
I know you're all tired of me, but this licensing and enforcement. And like I said, I came out, I looked at the room is pretty empty. I wish it was full. I want it to be full. But licensing and enforcement, if you're going to talk about that, then what about braiders? What about braiders being unlicensed in our state? How does a inspector enforce in an unlicensed establishment? I don't get that. Threading? What about threading? Do they get oversight? I don't know the answer to these questions, but enforcement. Christy, when you need inspectors, holler. In fact, this board, whatever you need, holler. Holler to the schools. We're the experts. The schools train the people. So, Christy, I don't know if you remember, some of the past testing people, a lot of the past testing people came out of my school. Grace Bailey, she retired some years ago. So I'm just saying that whatever the needs of this board, the industry is here to help. We're here to help. I hope I haven't come across adversarial, because I'm not. I'm pro board. I want this board. I want this board to be a strong board, and I want it to stay strong. But how can you stay strong when part of the industry is unregulated? You know, how does a cosmetologist feel that sits up next to a braider? You know, and we're not exploring those. So if we explore a little deeper, we'll get a handle on some of the issues. Don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, seeing no other public comment.
May I just interject? I was on the committee meeting that day, and one of the things we discussed, to your point, Fred, about these unlicensed people on social media blatantly advertising, the DOI has a hard time nailing down where they're operating out of, and we discussed this. We thought about appealing on social media, but to the consumers, saying, hey, when you're seeing, like meeting them where they're at, and doing our own posts and our own campaigns that would suggest making sure that you find a licensed person, or just doing your checks and balances when you're gonna, so advertising in the same way that these other unlicensed practitioners are, but doing it in a way that is in the same vein, so that we can kind of, you know, and also that the unlicensed people would be like, well, I don't want to be the person who they're going to deny, or they're not going to want to go to because I don't have my things together. So we talked about that and really trying to be hip in our social media campaign just as much as the unlicensed people are advertising. So I hope that we can do that. And again, not sure who's going to be in the videos, but but we really would like to do that. Yeah.
Make a comment?
Sure.
Speaking, once again, Seth Kaplan, Crew Institute of Cosmetology and Barbering, thank you. I was approached by an online booking service called Booksy, which people might be aware of. They wanted access to my students, and they wanted access to my school. And I had a hard problem with it because they weren't verifying that anybody that was advertising on there was licensed. And I got in a huge fight with them, to the point where I spoke with the owners out of, I think, Yugoslavia, or I forget which country they're out of. But I told them that, look, if you guys are not going to be verifying that people are licensed, you're not going to have access to us. I mean, this is wrong. And I can just see a myriad of reasons why people who are unlicensed would start using it, and pedophiles and anything else that could happen. And that really should be changed. And I couldn't get them to understand this. But what I did, what I was able to, well, they probably should, but what I was able to get across to my students is how important it is that you do things and activities that are what you're allowed to do with your license, and how if you're going to do a mobile barber, you have to get the PSP, and none of them knew anything about it. And so we tell them and we explain it to them, and I really try to get them to look at going to shops, because most of them just want to work off their phone, and they figure that that's all they need to do. When we explain to them, and we were fortunate enough to have the state board come out and talk and explain this to them, I think that if you go to the schools and if you have outreach to the schools like you guys have done in some instances, I think that you will get most of these points across. Because I'm educating 120, 150, 97% of my students are getting licensed, so most of them are going to work. And I think that if we start there, we'll get these points across pretty effectively. So, thank you.
Okay. Right, now we will move on to item number 12, report on the February 13th, March 13th, and April 10th Legislative and Budget Committee meetings. Reese?
Yes, hello. We have been busy. We've met 3 times since our board meeting, and we're going to continue to meet monthly for the time being as we are dealing with the legislative process and the Capitol and so forth. In February, as I mentioned, we had a good discussion about our purview, and I'm pleased we were able to come to a resolution with that. We also talked about our monthly schedule. In March, we reviewed the budget, and which remains healthy with significant months in reserve. The committee discussed the status of the fee study, which is still in process. The board's budget analyst retired, so management is plugging in processing time for each step of processing applications to calculate the cost by volume and establish the fees. It's expected to be completed in a few months. We also received an update on a few proposed bills, which we got into more depth in at our April meeting on the next one. And at our April meeting, we went through a number of bills where we voted, I believe everyone was unanimous, that we would recommend to the board that we would support. And I'll turn this over to Christy now to go through those bills with you.
All right, so we have a recommendation on all of these bills. I think we'll take one at a time. We would need a motion from the board to accept the committee's recommendation. So our first bill is AB 1328. This bill is the Cosmetology Licensure Compact. The board saw this language previously. It was in the original format of what the Council for State Governments put out, and now you're seeing it in the actual bill format. So there were some changes to the bill numbering wise from what you saw at the January board meeting. And the committee did take a position to support and authorize the executive officer to propose technical or non-substantive changes to the language.
Thank you, Christy. Any comments or questions from the board on this one? If not, can we get a motion? So the recommendation from the committee is to support and authorize the executive officer to propose technical and non-substantive changes to the language.
I make that motion.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No. I remembered. The question I have is that there's a portion of this bill on page 1 when it says it authorized the commissioner to levy and collect an annual assessment from the state and impose fees on licensees of member states whom it grants a multi-state license to cover the cost of operation and activities of the commission. Will this be a substantial fee?
I can tell you right now that the nursing compact is, I believe, around $6,000. So we are currently working on a fiscal impact for this bill, and we're saying $6,000 to $10,000.
Insignificant to our budget then.
Correct.
Yeah.
I make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Member Isbell. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Member Weeks. Okay, we are going to take public comment. We do have quite a few motions to get through, and so I'm going to limit public comment to the motion before the board. So this motion is to approve, support, and authorize the Cosmetology Licensure Compact, so AB 1328. Any public comment on this particular motion? Great. Seeing none, can we get a roll call vote?
Kelly Mayhem,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Trump,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Luana Jimenez,
Yes.
Claudia Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rosowski,
Yes.
Steve Lee,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you so much. And moving on to the next one, Christy.
All right, our next bill is SB 247. This is a bill that does not impact our board, but it does impact our licensees. This is some cleanup language for alcoholic beverages that are currently served in Barbering and Cosmetology establishments. This is a bill that would impact the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control, and what it is it clarifies the language. It currently states beauty salon and barber shop, and it will now clarify that it's covering all of our establishments as opposed to those terms that are very specific.
It's a pretty technical change, and I move to support it.
Do we have a
second.
Okay, second. Wonderful. Okay, let's move to public comment on SB 247.
Good change.
Great. Thank you. All right, can we have a roll call vote?
Kelly Mayhem,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Trump,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Luana Jimenez,
Yes.
Claudia Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rosowski,
Yes.
Steve Lee,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you so much. Christy.
Our next bill is SB 384. This bill is authored by Senator Bradford. This bill is the board's bill for remedial education. that the board had offered to pursue at our last meeting. Senator Bradford's office reached out to us, and this bill has been proposed and has a hearing next week. And so with that, the committee did recommend a support position.
Great.
Yes, Daniel?
Oh, no, that's the same thing.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
I move to support.
Okay, so we have member Isabel moves it, and then Vice President Fairley seconds. Okay. Public comment on SB 384.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understand SB 384 correctly. Can you tell me the gist of it again, please?
So this is public comment.
Yeah.
If you have a comment on
Okay,
SB 384, otherwise we do have a
Okay,
motion.
please tell me what SB 384 is again?
It's a bill to allow the board to develop a remedial education program.
Thank you. Okay, remedial education. Will the board be giving remedial education? Is that what it says? My question is, okay, is the board going to take licensees and put them in a classroom and remediate them?
So we don't have what the program will be like yet. This is just giving some authority to go ahead and develop that program, which we'll do regulation later.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Okay, seeing no other public comments, can we get a roll call vote?
Kelly Mayfield,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Chloe Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Daniel Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Wasowski,
Yes.
Steve Lee.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Christy?
All right, next bill is SB 451 by Senator Nguyen. This is a worker classification bill, so it doesn't impact our board at all, but it does impact our licensees. This is a bill that recreates the ABC test for our licensees to determine if they're an independent contractor. And this stems from a bill that passed a few years back, and it had a sunset date, an ending date for manicurists to be included in that. And this bill, originally, it removed that sunset date completely. Now the bill has a sunset date of January 1, the year 2030. So this, again, doesn't impact us, but it does put our manicurists in the same, considers them the same type of independent contractors that our other licensees are. And the committee did recommend a support position on this bill.
Questions and comments from the board?
I move to support.
Thank you. Member Isbell moves. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, and thank you. Member Kavanaugh seconds. Okay. Public comment on SB 451.
Rennie Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. This will be the fourth time you're chasing this down with another end date on it. And it's all about, they think everybody that's a manicurist is trafficked. There are plenty of public statutes and laws and things like that to deal with it. If you suggest any change of language, it needs to be to get rid of that 2030 timeout date again. You're just going to keep hitting this every 3 years until you find a solution for them, not assuming that everybody that's a manicurist is a trafficked individual. And there are plenty of ways for them to deal with that from a law enforcement standpoint. So, thank you very much.
Seeing no other public comment on this motion, can we get a roll call vote?
Kelly Mayfield,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Chloe Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Daniel Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Wasowski,
Yes.
Steve Lee.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Christy?
All right, our next bill is SB 544, which is a change to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. This will allow us to continue to hold teleconferences. As you know, that became very popular and allowed during COVID, where we can have a teleconference meeting and not list the address where everybody is calling in, which prior to COVID, we would have had to list every single address where every single board member is, which you obviously don't want to do. You don't want to, be home and list your home address on a public document. And so this bill, it will extend, our end date is June 30th of this year. We would have to go back to complete in-person meetings. Our board has pretty much gone back to in-person board meetings, but it works great for our committee meetings to be able to have teleconference. The committee did recommend a support position.
Thank you.
Thank you. I second. And on the note of the issue, in particular with our committee as we meet regularly, especially dealing with ongoing conversations in Sacramento, it is helpful for us to be able to meet by teleconference for quick conversations rather than taking the whole day to travel. So this is important, I believe, for our effectiveness.
Great, thank you. So we had a motion by Vice President Fairley and seconded by Member Isbell. Public comment on this item, or on this motion on SB 544? Okay, seeing none, can we get a roll call vote?
Kelly Maytan,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Wasowski,
Yes.
Steve Lee,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great, thank you. And then finally, Christy.
All right, our last bill is SB 817. This is authored by Senator Roth. This bill is a cleanup language to SB 803 that clarifies the hairstylist fee. And it will align our hairstylist fee with all of our other license types. Right now, the hairstylist fee is listed just at a straight $50. That will not cover the cost of the exam. All other license types list that you have an application and examination fee that is the actual cost to the board for the development and purchasing and grading of the examination. And then you have a licensing fee, which would be the $50. So this is that cleanup language that we had asked for last year but we did not get. And the committee recommended a support position.
Thank you. Questions and comments from the board members?
This is cleanup language. I support, move to support.
Okay, and we have a motion by Member Isbell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great, we have a second from Member Wasowski. Let's do public comment on this motion.
Hi, Fred Jones, PDF. See, this bill may be amended, so it's something you want to watch. It could be a vehicle for other issues. I understand why you're taking a support position today, but let's see what happens in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, let's take a vote.
Kelly Maytan,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Wasowski,
Yes.
Steve Lee,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great. Okay.
And I would just like to finalize the conversation for this committee by saying that on the note that was just mentioned, we do have another meeting of our committee in 3 weeks, so we will be looking at all of these bills as well as any potential new issues that come up by then.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's try to do one more agenda item before I propose a break. So let's do number 13. Report on the Health and Safety Advisory Committee meeting from March 20th. I chair that committee, and really we went over very carefully the draft for the regulations, sections 977 through 995, and I will turn it back to Christy to give us a status update.
Sure. So the committee, the Health and Safety Committee has been working on the health and safety regulations for quite some time. We now have a regulation, we have regulation language that is currently being reviewed by our Regulations Council. And so the committee recommended that language go to the board. We are hopeful that we'll have that language at our next board meeting. And it is quite extensive. As you see, what the committee looked at is in your agenda packet. There's no recommendation to the board. Well, there's no document to the board at this time. It has to go through the cleanup version and make it appropriate with legal, and then we will be bringing that to the board hopefully at our next meeting.
Great. Thank you, Chrissy. So again, this is not going to be the form that we will eventually see at the board meeting. So does anyone have questions on this draft that we might never see again? Nope, all right. Okay, let's take public comment just on this item. 13.
Wendy California, California Aesthetic Alliance. I'm assuming this is going to go through iterations and iterations in language, so I don't have to give you any of my comments right now.
And you can send them over if you try to do that in email, but yeah, this is going to be vetted. I can't tell you how many times.
Bazillion.
Yeah,
Just go with the
yes.
bazillion. Okay,
Yes,
cool. 'Cause
absolutely.
There are a couple of things in here that would be really tough for the board to enforce. Things like, how are you going to enforce whether somebody's wearing gloves? Like, how are you going to know that? And you should have waxing in here too for gloves. But there's I'll go ahead and I'll
Yes,
tear this apart and see.
absolutely. And more eyes the better.
Good.
And we're going to see it many times, you'll be sick of it. By the
Well-
time we're done. I don't feel you in good shape.
I will be, or I. Present tense.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other public comment on that? Okay, great. If nothing else, let's take 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then we will push through to the end. All right. 30 seconds. Okay, everyone, let's get started again. Moving on to item number 14, discussion and update of regarding. Moving on to item number 14, discussion and update regarding rulemaking proposals. Christy.
Okay, this item will not need any action by the board. This is just an update on regulation packages that we are working on. We have given a lot of work to our regulations attorney. We have several packages that are currently with her for review. That is our 803 cleanup, our apprenticeship, our transfer of credit, and our disciplinary guidelines. And then board staff are currently working on regulation packages that address schools and externs.
Wonderful. Any questions or comments from board members? Any public comment on this item, item number 14? Seeing none, all right, let's move on to number 15. Okay, public comment on items not on the agenda. So at this time, we welcome public comment on items that were not on the agenda today.
Wendy Cochran, California Aesthetic Alliance. In light of the whole apprenticeship conversation, I feel that this is something that the board does need to kind of dig into more, and possibly add to your committee meetings somehow, because you have a lot of committee meetings, because it is so exploitive, and now it is becoming even more exploitive if you don't even have to take a practical, and I'm just going to have you pass a written test. You know, I know we have conversations about how difficult it is sometimes for folks to pass the written examination, but you know, $6,000 cash in somebody's pocket is a lot easier for me to pick up my cosmetology license by just taking an 80-question multiple choice test. And I feel that it really needs to be addressed not only from a labor standpoint, but also from, you're going to have a bunch of people with fake licenses out there. If they have figured out that you don't even need to learn how to do hair in order to pass an 80-question multiple choice test. So this is something that you guys really should consider and dig into and get a resolution to, as well as making it somehow in statute that injuries are reported from insurance companies back to the board so that they can be noted and investigated, so that the people who are injuring people over and over again are not just, you know, blowing off in private lawsuits, and that you actually know when somebody is a licensee is out there and injuring consumers and you're not even hearing about it. So that's a big problem. Thank you.
There's no way I can say everything in 2 minutes. But I'm going to just mention 7317. I know it well. the ones that are on DRC. I was on DRC for 4 years, 5,000 cases I went through. Chris, you know, so I used to get stacks this high in the mail. So I understand your job. I'm going to share my grandmother's favorite saying, what you do speaks so loud, I can't hear what you say. Actions speak louder than words. Christy can't find inspectors because the qualifications don't match. Why is that? Why can't the board vote on them removing the criminal part of an inspector's job? It has to be, that presumes that the inspectors go into an adversarial situation, that they need criminal justice in their background. I think the licenses are more important. They don't need a license. The inspectors don't need a... I just want common sense to prevail. I want the common sense to prevail. And this is your board, you have authority. There's some authority to your position. The question is, okay, it's like, how many budgets has this board ever fall short of? None. No budget, because the board brings in way more money than it ever spends. But where does that money go? Does it go to outreach? No. So, I mean, you know, without sounding, I mean, you know, I think I feel like I beat you over the head with my information and my experience. But I can tell you, I probably won't come to another board meeting. There's too infrequent. I don't see them. You know, I want this board to be very hands-on.
2 minutes.
And I want, in that 2 minutes, I want a board member to come visit my school. Is that asking too much? I don't think so. 90 seconds left, 30. I'm done and I'm out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing no other comments, let's move on to 16 suggestions for future agenda items. I will start just going back to Member Weeks' suggestion about DRC, or just I would be interested again in an agenda item in a future board meeting where we discuss kind of recent DRCs, trends that we were seeing, possible proposals for maybe things that we need to address that aren't currently being addressed in our regulations or our current framework. That would be wonderful. And anybody else have any other board members have suggestions for future agenda items?
Oh, I'm wondering what everyone thinks about this now with the diversity, the DEI committee coming on board. If we put it on the agenda, just if we don't work towards everyone sitting on it, at least having some type of platform where all of us kind of weigh in on what we'd like to see on this committee, take some public comment, and then the committee members kind of leave with a charge. That way, on some level, everybody got to have their say, just because I feel like there's so many different voices, lenses, whether it's from the accessibility side, just to the diversity, inclusion. There's so many like angles to DEIA. I would just like to know if maybe that could be an agenda item so we can come together.
Sounds like you're volunteering to be on the committee.
Sure, and that too. And that too, sure.
Great. So what I'm hearing is that you'd like to see it as a agenda item for the full board, just to start off with, like, setting goals and some starting points of what things we want to focus on. Okay, great.
I think definitely an overview of the committee's tasks and roles would be a good place to start there. Absolutely.
Okay.
I would love to see, and maybe it's not an agenda, but just something for the the public members, info around CEU, like requirements, or if there is none. Okay, so that's all I need. That is all I need. Then maybe as well putting on the agenda to have for future discussions about our roles in communications with like insurance providers of various services that we can bill for insurance.
Anything else from any other board members?
Well, I second your DRC. That was my
Thank you.
note
Thank
too.
you.
So.
So actually going back to the point about apprenticeship programs, because I know it's an issue that we've discussed before, and I know we did quite a bit of work on it in committee, but I don't know if we've had a conversation as a full board.
We have draft regulations.
Okay.
So we anticipate those coming to the board at the next meeting. Is that right, Allison? Extensive regulation package that we've been working on that will help strengthen that program.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that update, Christy.
And Christy, will you also in that update give us an update with that about because I know you were meeting with the Bureau.
Yes.
And so that happened in between our last meeting and this meeting.
Yes, we have had meetings with both the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary and the Division of Apprenticeship Standards and the Department of Consumer Affairs, and we're working to try to address some of our most significant issues, and we'll have an update for you on that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, anything else from anyone? No? Okay. All right, well then with that, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.